Seen it ready? All right, good evening. I'll call the meeting to order. For, what's today's date? November 18th, 2025. Please rise as you're able for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. You may be seated. I lost my window.
Do you want me to see if there's a hard copy?
I'll turn it over to the Assistant Township Manager for the stuff.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair, and thank you to the members of the board, staff, and the public for joining us this evening for the November 18th Ferguson Township Board of Supervisors regular meeting. This meeting has been properly advertised in accordance with the Pennsylvania Sunshine Act as a hybrid meeting with the option to attend virtually and in person here in the main meeting room. If you were in attendance virtually using the WebEx platform and wish to speak on behalf of an agenda item, please say your name, municipality of residence, and the topic you wish to speak on when the chair calls on you. If you were attending in person with us in the main meeting room and wish to speak on behalf of an agenda item, please address the board at the podium and state your name, municipality of residence, and the topic you wish to speak on. Members of the public attending using the WebEx platform are asked to remain muted during the meeting to prevent any ambient noise from disrupting the meeting. If a member of the public is acknowledged by the chair, they may unmute their microphone for their question or comment. Secondly, board members are asked to indicate their name when motioning or seconding a motion so that minutes may accurately reflect the action taken. Finally, a roll call of the Board of Supervisors will now be taken to ensure that all members can hear and interact using the WebEx platform. Please indicate that you are here when your name is called. Mr. Thompson.
I'm here.
Mr. Patterson.
Here.
Ms. Stevens.
Here?
Mr. Heller.
Here.
Ms. Strickland.
Here.
Vice Chair, you have a quorum.
Thank you, sir. Next on our agenda are announcements and proclamations. We have a proclamation to recognize November 19, 2025 as GIS Day, Geographic Information Systems Day. Excuse me. Is there anyone that would like to read that? My voice will not let me. Okay, my voice is going to have to be.
I can do that.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry, I just had to pull up here and make sure it's large enough for me to read. Okay. A proclamation of the Township of Ferguson, Center County, Pennsylvania to recognize November 19th, 2025 as GIS Day. Whereas Ferguson Township recognizes an understanding, use, and application of geospatial technology is crucial to operating our infrastructure, sustaining our natural resources, and stimulating economic growth, thus benefiting the welfare of the general public throughout Ferguson Township. And whereas Geographic Information Systems, or GIS, technology allows us to see and model complex relationships and patterns to more intelligently respond, and whereas there is a need to promote GIS awareness, education, and technical training to use this rapidly developing technology to its full potential. And whereas Ferguson Township acknowledges those that have chosen GIS as their profession or as part of their discipline to improve the lives of our citizens. And whereas to recognize and support the efforts of nonprofits who work on activities to improve conservation, human services, and various humanitarian efforts to better our world. And whereas having a day of GIS activities open to students, citizens, and government leaders will help promote STEM education and inspire others to a higher calling to use technology for good. And whereas is committed to utilizing GIS to inform decision-making and better serve its residents and make useful geographic information open and easily available to the public as a platform for innovation. Now, therefore, the Ferguson Township Board of Supervisors does hereby proclaim November 19th, 2025 as GIS Day in Ferguson Township and urges all residents to join in recognizing the significant contributions made by GIS personnel in safeguarding our health, ensuring public safety, and enhancing the quality of life for all members of our community. Proclaim this 18th day of November 2025.
Thank you, sir. And I'm especially grateful as our citizen request portal was built on that ARC GIS system, and staff did a fantastic job with that. I use it regularly, so thank you so very much.
So you need a motion to approve?
I will entertain one.
Motion to approve the proclamation as read.
I will second.
It's been properly moved and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor do so by saying aye.
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 And opposed, do the same.
Aye.
Motion carries. Excellent. Just wanted to, we'll go on to public comment. This is for anything that is not currently on the agenda in the old business or new business. I think consent agenda kind of gets routed through, so I'm happy to entertain that public comment if there's anything on the consent agenda that folks want to talk about. So I will, from the floor, I see Ms. Coral.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening. My name is Kayla Coral, Ferguson Township resident. The reason for my public comment this afternoon is a result of the previous Planning Commission meeting that I was at, which I was significantly disheartened. We collectively, as boards, as staff, as humans, are letting down our township residents. We had a significant amount of highly concerned, very valid concerns come to a Planning Commission meeting at the direction of staff and or board members to a Planning Commission meeting with which there was no control to help them or pass along their information because it was already too far gone in the process. I'm asking for you all to make note of the inexperience that we have within our staff at this current moment, the scale of the residents that we have in our area. Education doesn't just post it up on the website. It requires all of us to work together to actively go into our community to have some sort of knowledge of who needs what. So when a resident has a very valid safety complaint about a project, they should be able to go to our staff or a board member with that and know that their voice is heard, not be sent bombarded to a Planning Commission meeting in the hopes that they're going to make a significant change that evening. So that is the reason why I needed to make this public comment. If we could have some sort of hierarchy or a tree or something that we could confidently say, when in doubt, call this person will get you where you need to go, because all that happened was a bunch of passing the buck, and I had got that comment from all of the residents that attended that meeting that evening. So this is me as a resident asking you all as residents to help me educate everybody else, not just put it on the internet. So thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment? And online, I do see one hand raised. Please put your hand down and come off mute and speak, sir. Mr. Glebe. Wes Glebe, your hand is raised. Maybe my volume was not high enough. Did you want to speak for public comment? All right.
Just for the record, Mr. Chairman, you're good on this end.
You're good on the sound.
Okay, thank you, sir. All right, well, I may need to allow Mr. Glebe to come back if he's having some technical difficulty. Let's keep the meeting moving forward. I did want to just share perhaps, just as chair of the meeting here, just wanted to maybe share a couple of rules that we want to kind of go forth with. Number one, I think for each agenda item, we'll kind of do a once or twice around between the board. I'll entertain a motion, then we'll entertain some public comment on the motion. And I'll just remind the public that it's not public inquiry. If you have questions on the agenda, that, you know, your time over the last few days to reach out to staff was the last few days. But certainly speak your piece in front of the group. And then we'll go to a vote. Any questions about that order of operations for each agenda item?
No.
Okay, cool. Excellent. Also, I did want to, in addition to the agenda, we have the approval of the minutes, but I also want to make sure we're all good with the agenda itself. Any amendments to the agenda?
A lot of people in the audience. Okay.
Okay, we'll hear none. So we approval of minutes. I did see a few things, a couple of misspellings. Mr. Thompson was not included, so I wanted to make sure that and entertain a motion at a minimum to include adding Mr. Thompson to the attendee list and correcting several of the misspellings in there.
This is Patty, so moved.
Matt, I'll second.
It's been probably moved and seconded. Any additional feedback or discussion on that? All right, hearing none. It's been probably moved and seconded. All those in favor do so by saying aye.
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 I
Aye. Opposed, do so by doing the same. All right, motion carried. Next item on the agenda, reports and presentations. This month is National Native American Heritage Month, American Indian Heritage Month, and Alaska Native Heritage Month, as well as the International Day for the Elimination of Violence Against Women on November 25th. Up next, an informational update from Ferguson Ford, presented by Fourth Economy. Their representative is ?
It is myself, Maya Haptis, and Justin Wheeler on the call today. We're here virtually.
Thank you for being here. Please.
Yeah, thank you for having us. Justin's going to share screen, and I can go ahead and kick us off. I know that you've met some of my colleagues, but I don't believe that I have met some of you. So just to introduce myself, I'm Maya Haptis. I'm a senior consultant with Fourth Economy. I've served as a project manager with our team here. And as we've developed this plan, it's been our pleasure to be able to come and give you updates. So we're going to be sharing some additional updates tonight as we move forward to the plan's finalization. So thank you for having us. Justin and I are going to share presentation duties tonight, but do feel free to interrupt us with questions if you do have them on a specific slide. We will also be happy to answer any questions at the end as well. So just to remind you a little bit about our firm, Fourth Economy is a community and economic development firm. We help create strong communities, impactful organizations, and thriving economies. We do that through work in economic development planning, emerging industries, housing, organizational strategic planning, outdoor recreation, and projects that impact quality of life and place. And we wanted to, we spent more time in our last presentation really talking through that planning process as it was, unspooling, right? So as it was going on, we went more in depth last time into the engagement efforts and analysis, but we did want to give you an overview of the methodology and planning process as we move into our presentation tonight. So if we can move on to that slide, Justin. So just sharing a little bit about the plan as well. We feel like it's really important to be clear with these plans, right? There's a lot of different planning efforts going on. And while we also want to say what the plan is, we also like to say what the plan is not. specifically with a plan here that has, a rather unique focus and very straight, a focused that has a focus, excuse me. So I'll just highlight a little bit of this text. I'm not going to read it all to you, but this plan is going to serve as a strategic guide for Ferguson Township's economic future. And just to capture that last line, in short, the plan provides a roadmap for economic vitality and community well-being over the next decade. And so when we think about what the plan is and what the plan is not, we want to be clear that this isn't a capital plan, a specific land use plan, or a traditional comprehensive planning document. So we're not changing zoning policy codes or ordinances or dictating where development must occur, but instead we're making recommendations to create that economic vitality for the township. So, what we say is Ferguson Township can thrive while maintaining the character that residents and visitors value. And that's something that we heard all along the planning process and all through engagement is how much people value living here in Ferguson Township and how much people just value the quality of life and place that exist. And so we see this as really enhancing those existing amazing, assets that the township has. And so now we'll talk a little bit about just briefly the methodology that we used, planning for impact. So overall, the plan is focused on implementable strategies. We really set up the implementation of all of our plans to make sure that they produce results. And this is Ferguson's first plan of this type. So really digging into what are the short-term and long-term outcomes and then aligning those with timelines. And we'll talk a little bit about that further in the presentation. Looking at Ferguson Township within the regional ecosystem, what existing efforts are going on, the historic performance, and really gaining a holistic picture of Ferguson's role locally and also within the larger region. We spoke a lot about our engagement in the last presentation, but we have made an effort to produce meaningful engagement throughout this planning process, gathering over 500 responses to our survey, holding roundtables with the business community, the arts community, agricultural communities, and we held build sessions, we attended public meetings. So we really tried to elevate common priorities through capturing all of those different voices. And then, of course, a focus on data analysis and making sure that we're presenting data in a way that is accessible to people and what we like to say, demystified.
Okay, I'll take it from here. So to sort of visualize what Maya was just saying, I know we presented a bit of our process in the last meeting, but as a reminder, we've engaged in a lot of activities that have formed this plan. These include conducting research, data analysis, reviewing regional plans for alignment, conducting extensive public outreach. We've utilized our steering committee to provide input and either validate or correct our conclusions along the way. And most recently, when we were just back there a few weeks ago, holding bill sessions to co-create the strategies that we're presenting tonight. So just all of these serve as inputs to the priority areas and the strategies that we're going to be walking through here in a minute. So the priority areas, this is just sort of our way of bucketing all of the recommendations and strategies together. The priority areas that rose to the top are supporting businesses, entrepreneurship, and workforce development, enabling smart growth and responsive planning processes, enhancing quality of life and quality of place, and increasing economic development, organizational capacity, and effectiveness. Hopefully these aren't too much of a shock to you. This is an economic development plan, so we wanted to make sure that we are capturing those things through an economic lens that are going to benefit growth in Ferguson Township. So as I mentioned, there are 4 priority areas and 22 corresponding strategic recommendations. These reflect the community's desire to support local businesses and workforce, reduce barriers to entrepreneurship, improve efficiency and transparency in the planning and development process, create spaces that foster deeper community connections, and encourage growth while protecting natural areas and farmlands. And these are all reflective of the priorities and the feedback that we've received along the way. What we're presenting tonight is an overview of these priorities and strategies. You'll be receiving the full report for review, and that'll include the supporting data, the rationale and context behind these strategies, as well as the action steps needed for implementation, the township's role, regional partners who should be involved, resources needed and potential funding sources, as well as metrics for ongoing evaluation. All that is to say, we like to try and set you up for success by giving you as much information as possible to guide implementation. So we're just going to step through the priority areas and the strategies. Again, this is at sort of a high level, but the first priority was really informed by the fact that residents and businesses voiced that Ferguson needs to become more business friendly and better integrated into the regional economic ecosystem. We know that there are really great resources in your community, really great organizations doing a lot of hard work, that the businesses really do have the support they need, but they may not always be able to access that or know where to start. So that's what's reflected here. As we look at the strategies for this priority area, they center around supporting existing businesses by connecting them with those vast resources and support that's available in the region, harnessing the township science and technology corridor along Science Park Road to align with regional innovation and economic development initiatives that are currently going on, such as the Sensor Valley effort, as well as the arts and culture potential of Pine Grove Mills. We've also suggest really leaning into the potential for ag tech, outdoor recreation, and agritourism as potential areas that the township's really uniquely positioned to grow in. We are advocating for working to expand regional partnerships related to workforce challenges, ensuring that the township has the infrastructure necessary to support growth, and that infrastructure is resilient and future-proofed long-term. And lastly, as we heard across all sectors and respondents, that agriculture is deeply important to the township's identity, and that agribusinesses, we want to make sure that they can remain in Ferguson from across generations. Stepping into the next priority area, which is enabling smart growth and responsive planning processes. This is in response to throughout the process, from a variety of stakeholders, we heard that the township has a reputation for being a more difficult business and development environment than surrounding townships. Whether deserved or not, the perception exists. So this priority area is really meant to address both the perceptions and the realities that will enable smart growth and development. And what that looks like is making improvements to zoning so that both policies and processes are clearer, more predictable, and more consistent, changing perceptions around zoning and development through education and collaboration, building on the work that's already being done in the township to advance affordable and attainable housing options, and balancing land conservation with smart growth. The next priority area gets into enhancing quality of life in place. So it's really focusing on improving quality of life in place, through the lens of economic development. So we want to make sure the township's a place where people want to live and visit. You've got amazingly high scores in terms of people's satisfaction, in terms of quality of place, and people really do love living in the community. But we also want to enable the sorts of creative businesses and entrepreneurship that's going to make Ferguson Township stand apart. So the strategies in this priority area are really about promoting and activating public spaces for deeper community connections and economic benefit, creating centers of gravity in the community that are attractive to both residents and visitors, and really leveraging the potential of agribusinesses and outdoor recreation for growth. Looking at the last priority area, this is focused on increasing economic development, capacity, and effectiveness. So the final priority area focuses on capacity needs to enable the recommendations and support implementation in the township, And we were mindful both of suggesting new resources, but also fully capitalizing on existing staff capacity and the ICDA. So to that end, the strategies in this section include revisiting the ICDA to help make that a stronger board that can help guide implementation and expand the township's capacity to engage in economic development. Bringing on a full-time economic development coordinator to do the in-the-trenches economic development work, like meeting with local businesses, securing funding, and coordinating on behalf of the township with broader regional efforts, and expanding the messaging that Ferguson Township is a great place to live and work, and that it's open for business. And I will pass it back to Maya.
Thanks, Justin. So just to give you then, a recap and talk about some of the key principles of the plan. So we understand that these priorities are interrelated. So when we see success in one area, that reinforces others. This is going to be a living document. It is a living document. It requires annual review, looking at the implementation plan, and there will need to be flexibility and adaptation as new opportunities arise. It is a community-driven plan. We worked hard to ensure that, and that ensures that economic success aligns with preserving what people love about Ferguson. So we have anticipated outcomes. In 5 years, Ferguson Township will have more thriving local businesses and economic diversity, well-planned smart growth and a collaborative development environment, increased community engagement with vibrant public spaces, and increased capacity and a collaborative forward-thinking approach to economic development. And so with that, the final plan will contain a detailed implementation matrix, as well as each priority area containing action steps, the key partners that will be necessary to move it forward, funding opportunities that can be taken advantage of to move the strategy and action step, relevant examples, so case studies, examples from other cities that Ferguson Township can look to, and then metrics to be able to measure success and progress. And so in terms of next steps for us, we are finalizing the Ferguson Forward Economic Development Growth and Innovation Strategic Master Plan, and that includes that implementation matrix. And we will be presenting that final plan to you on December 2nd. And so with that, I think we say thank you and open it up to any questions.
Ms. Stevens?
I guess really just you had these metrics of like 5 years out that this would be this. What is the shelf life of this thing that you put together, this report?
Yeah, so it is in terms of the implementation, a 5-year plan looking at short, medium, and long-term goals. And so while it does need to remain, flexible at the same time, our goal is always that it continues to that time frame.
Okay.
Mr.
And we realize that a lot of things that we're implementing are not going to happen in the 5 years, but there are things in the plan that you may initiate in the next 5 years, but will either be ongoing, or you're sowing the seeds for something that, may take beyond that 5-year time horizon. But we're including it in the plan so that you're starting that process now.
Yeah, thanks for clarifying, Justin. That's an important point.
Yeah, thank you again for the presentation. I appreciate this. So just a couple things that I wanted to touch on. First off, I appreciate that this is really the what we need to do, but it's not the how we need to do it. So the how still needs to be decided, if I'm correct in reading this. And I think that's where we really have to step up and figure that out. So one of the things that I want to ask then is, where have you seen other municipalities maybe falter or stumble after this step? What is the thing that we should be looking out for after we go forward from today?
Sure. So a couple thoughts about that. One is that our intention is to give you a lot of that how, right? So we really have utilized the steering committee to identify the partners that will be necessary to move the plan forward, and have that implementation plan that can be followed. It doesn't get down to sort of a month by month or day by day detail, but that can be something that if someone is the owner of moving the plan forward, that they can then take and move into like a detailed work plan for a specific position. I think where we've seen communities falter with similar efforts is when there's no sort of single owner of the plan or someone keeping the eye on the ball. We see a lot of success with, for example, like implementation committees, and that could be potentially through staff or through the ICDA. I think there's a couple different options, but it's just making sure that there's someone watching the implementation unfold, updating those metrics, being able to communicate success. We've made some recommendations overall about communication, and some of that involves, updates on the website and things like that, that can really keep all those that have been engaged part of moving the plan forward.
Thank you for that. So I just want to maybe get some clarifying questions out there too. So when I think about this, it really sounds like you need somebody to honcho this, lead it, support it, care and feeding. What does that makeup usually look like? What does a project or a program team usually entail? How many people, staff, community? Could you give me a sense of that?
Yeah, so Justin touched on that a little bit, and I'll make sure he has a chance to add anything after I'm done. But it does look different, depending on the plan and depending on what those short and long-term goals are, as well as who the implementation partners are. I would say, for example, one of our recommendations is strengthening regional collaboration. And so having someone designated to connect with regional efforts, and both planning efforts and also just economic development efforts that are going on, and that can leverage so that Ferguson Township doesn't need to have a massive project team to necessarily build all this capacity and move it forward. I think something we tried or something we have worked and achieved through the plan is really being thoughtful about what the existing roles are for staff. And so sometimes we have recommended that the township does have someone focused entirely on economic development going into the future. That may take some time to kind of ramp up to, but that will be a way to achieve the most success.
Yeah, and I don't want to give a wishy-washy, it depends answer, but it really is, has to be right-sized to the community. So, for example, we've done plans for the city of Lebanon and the city of Scranton. And in both of those cases, it was really the mayor and the mayor's office that was driving the implementation. We've also frequently do plans for counties that have, a county level economic development organization. And so they have more of that capacity to implement. So what we're recommending is sort of a phased approach. We do think that you will need to have somebody who is really running point on this. But in the sort of early days, we're hoping that you can leverage the ICDA for that, or existing staff. And so we've tried to identify some action steps that can be, quick and early wins that you can get off the ground with the capacity that you currently have.
Perfect. Thank you so much for that. I appreciate the clarity, and those are my only questions, comments.
Thanks, sir. Ms. Strickland, do you have anything?
No, I appreciate the update, and in particular, I think just incorporating using activities and groups we already have, like the ICDA. I think that will be really beneficial in keeping any potential costs down as we move forward with this.
Excellent. My only thought was priority area 1. I didn't quite see the connection between the priority and the strategies. It was make Ferguson Township more business friendly, but I didn't see any business friendly. I guess in what you wrote, I didn't see the connection. And so I would just ask that maybe there's a better wording that makes the connection for me. All the rest certainly made sense, but that was one I wasn't fully there on how it's going to make Ferguson Township more business friendly, those strategies.
Yeah, and I hope in the final report that'll be more clear. It was hard to distill down to one slide there. That's the category that has the most strategies, and we're sort of encompassing everything from supporting existing local businesses to connecting on resource and workforce needs. So it's kind of a big bucket. So I understand what you're saying, and hope that we'll make that more clear in the final product.
And that's just also very helpful feedback for us to know that as this was introduced to you, there was a little bit of a disconnect there. And I think we can, definitely take that lens to the language. But yeah, when the final plan, it goes into a lot more detail.
Awesome. Thank you so much. We'll do one more. Any go backs? Anyone? Okay. Very good. And we will go on to our next. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And we'll go to our next agenda item, which is a update on the development of regional impact review process for the Hess softball field and Miss Pam Adams. Please come to the hot seat. I meant podium.
The podium, yes. Thank you. My name is Pam Adams, Regional Planning Director. Tonight I'm going to do a PowerPoint that I think is going to be pulled up. And basically, we're going to give a bit of a background overview, why I'm here, and what we want to talk about for your questions. So I'm going to lay a little bit of foundation and then be here to answer any of your questions that you have. So on the next slide is a bit of background. And this can go back further to regional parks, but I'm trying to keep it into this year's discussion of what's recently happened. So in January, the Facilities Committee at COG, Council of Governments, looked at and discussed the Hess Field softball complex. That is one of the regional parks, and it currently does not have permanent restrooms. It has porta potties. And they received a report on evaluating options for public restrooms, if you want to say. And so that committee happened. They made a series of motions. The one of which I'm pointing out tonight was they made a motion that they supported COG exploring the ability for Hess Field to have public sewer. So I'm not going to go into detail, but if you have a question on that, I can go into that committee meeting and the report. Then in July, not yet, in July, the Harris Township sent a formal letter to COG asking COG to explore the Regional Growth Boundary Sewer Surface Area Implementation Agreement that occurs every 5 years. I'm going to talk about that a little bit more, but they wanted to open that agreement, and they suggested that we allow them to have public sewer by exception. So that was one of their recommendations or suggestions on how they could get public sewer for Hess Field. Lucy and at the COG committee, Lucy stands for Land Use and Community Infrastructure. At their August and then again in October meeting, there was discussion about this item and how to move forward. And basically they did not like the idea of an exception for COG-owned facilities because it's a COG rule. We can't accept our own rules. So that was thrown out, and they asked, let's look at a process that could work instead. So that has kind of led us to the COG committee is now going and asking each of the municipalities to answer some policy questions, and we'll get to those as I continue through a little bit of the overview. So that's why I'm here. So on the next slide, you'll see what the Regional Growth Boundary and Sewer Service Area is. So we call that the RGB, SSA. For decades, and in the 2000 comp plan, it was officially defined, but it's been, even prior to that, was considered priority growth areas. But there's an outline, that dark line that goes around sort of where there's more density is called the Regional Growth Boundary Sewer Service Area, and that has been defined for where more dense growth should occur, with the idea that it makes for more efficient public services It can make things more affordable, whether it's through public transit, water, sewer. So you'll see that that regional growth boundary exists, and then it also is around Pine Grove Mills, right? So it is mostly contained, but there's the spot of Pine Grove Mills that occurs there. To allow for the ability to expand that regional growth boundary sewer service area, there is an implementation agreement, and that was last updated in 2023 and needs to be updated every 5 years. That implementation agreement walks through processes to be able to request an expansion. If you click on the next little button, one exception is allowed that you don't have to go through this process, and that's if the DEP declares that there's a public threat. Basically, if there's a septic failure and the property has no other option and it needs to connect to sewer. So that's the only exception that currently exists. I mentioned Harris asked if maybe a public park could be considered exception, but right now there is one exception. And if you click on the next one, it's going to be hard to see on this, but we kind of zoom in. Tussey Mountain is an exception. It's not in the regional growth boundary. You know where it is. It's close to the regional growth boundary, but that sewer service area, it had a septic failure and has had sewer put in since 2000, between now and then, but it's been a while. The more recent one is Meyer Dairy Store. They had a septic failure, did not fit anywhere on their property somewhere else, so they also have sewer, and they are not in the regional growth boundary. So there can be, if you want to say, a little bit of separation between the sewer service area and the regional growth boundary. For the most part, we try to connect it. Another question that's come up is, well, if you expand or you put a spot for Hess Field, let's say as an example, that just will promote more growth. But I will point out that Pine Grove Mills is a spot that is not contiguous, and it has not expanded that growth. So that I just want to lay a little bit of the groundwork on the regional growth boundary. When we talked about the sewer service area and the implementation agreement,
It's just a little bit behind. Make sure it's not over
one of the steps in the implementation process is to figure out what type of DRI, development of regional impact, it's going to be. And there can be a minor DRI or there can be a major DRI. Yeah. So basically, when you're trying to figure out what type of development request, and all the development requests to date that we've received have been from developers, people who want to sort of expand growth, put a new commercial building in, build more homes. The minor DRI is new to this most recent implementation agreement, and it allows for smaller projects that is allowed to be handled by the municipality. It's reviewed by the Center Region Planning Commission, but it doesn't have to go to general forum. And if it's a minor, it is greater than one EDU, equivalent dwelling unit, as defined by the University Area Joint Authority, which is our wastewater authority, and up to 50. There's a couple other steps. It has to be contiguous with the regional growth boundary, and there's some other things related to traffic. That's a minor, and then there's a major, which is greater than one EDU, and it can be, there's no limit on that one. That one has to go to general forum. So this is the first step in the process. So as I indicated, most of the projects, actually most of, if not all of the requests we receive for DRIs have been related to developers. And so this idea of a public park, if you go to the next one, is it doesn't quite fit in a developer's process. In fact, as far as the UAJ, the wastewater authority, says is that a public park is really only one EDU, so it doesn't fit into the minor or the major because those are both greater than one EDU, right? It's supposed, we've been thinking of it as development. So one of the things that came forward is that this, DRI process does not really look at a public facility like a public parkland that is for the community and benefits the whole community, but it's not growth, right? It's not looking at growing and developing and, if we want to call it sprawl. It is about providing a regional service, and there's times when it might make sense for protecting recharge areas and such like that. So if you go to the next one, basically this process of the regional growth boundary, the purpose is to direct growth within these areas. But the Lucy Committee has looked at it as, you know, this idea of a parkland should be something that maybe we should consider having a different process for. Not that we're giving full approval for a Hess Field. This started with Hess Field, it started with COG-owned facilities, it's then moved to public parkland. Now I'm even hearing some ideas about, well, what if there's a new fire station and it's outside of the regional growth boundary? That's for the public good. It's providing a service that improves our quality of life, and perhaps it's on land that makes sense to have not a septic system, or the land itself doesn't allow for a septic system. So the idea of the regional growth boundary, and you can see the different pictures over here over time, is to keep that growth. But there's also this idea of the sewer service area. So one last slide. Oh, these are the policy questions, and I think they're in their agenda. We'll come back to them. But basically, what we're trying to ask is, do the municipalities support that if you look at regional parks or public parkland, is it a policy choice, if it's economically viable, that you would like them to be connected to public sewer? That could be a quality of investment into your community, for your residents, and for visitors, right? It has a certain sense and feel when you go to a park that has a public structure versus a porta potty. The second question is, does the municipality have interest in CRPA and Lucy Committee looking at the implementation agreement and defining a process and criteria for public parklands? And it could be public facilities, but we can get into that. This same question is being asked to everybody. And or should it be part of the comprehensive process and Act 537 plan? The comprehensive plan is supposed to be done. We're working on that now, and it will be wrapping up by the end of next year, at which point we will then start working on the Act 537 plan. And that Act 537 plan is a wastewater sewage plan in which this will feed into it. It can be done prior to or in the same time period. So those are the policy questions. I got one more slide just to point out. For this area, and can you see the? I have to look. Yeah, you can see. There is Hess Field, and I'll just point it out right here. This is Shingletown area. This is Hess Field here. That's the green. And basically, this map is our future land use map, proposed draft form that we're looking at for the comprehensive plan. So it's a way of looking at how the land is being used. The brown is conserved or preserved land already. And then the gray is State College Borough Water Authority. It's a utilities facility.
Next time you go over there, can you bring the mic with you?
Yes.
The wireless? Yeah.
Yep.
Because the CNET will need to listen to you. But thank you.
All right.
That's good.
So I'll go back over just to make sure people can understand that. Here's Shingletown. This is 45. This is Hess Field. The green is stands for public open space. This brownish area that is in that area are preserved land. So they are in conservation, can't be developed. Here's State College Borough Water Authority. It's the gray. This is utility. This is part of their water system. They own that land. This stripe, just for FYI, is Hess Farm, and it's looking at being conserved. It's in the process of conservation. The Borough Water Authority has wells here. This area is an important water recharge area, and we've had a focus group meeting, a discussion with them on land use. This dotted is where they've said, you know, this should not be developed. This is part of their recharge. It's critical recharge area. So I'm just pointing that out. This conversation today does not have to be and is not about just Hess Field, but since that's sort of what's kicked this off, I wanted to lay that groundwork before we talk about the questions. That is my presentation. If you go back, James, to the questions. Basically, each municipality is providing some feedback. It's not saying that you are supporting the financial investment in any public sewer. It's looking for the policy questions that can let Lucy know if it's a task that CRPA should be taking forward in the next year. And one last thing I'll add from the Facilities Committee, looking at this as far as specifically for Hessfield, is they can't request grants or even apply for grants because it's currently not legal for them to have sewer, so they are not able to move forward at all until this question is handled as far as will it someday be allowed to have public sewer.
Thank you. Let's start with Ms. Strickland, our Lucy representative. If you have any questions, comments.
Thanks. I think Pam did a great job of explaining the very long discussion we had at Lucy Committee. It was a really productive discussion, and through that came this third policy question of incorporating any change into an Act 537 plan update. That seemed to not be a preferred option, but maybe a preferred option by most. I think there were still some good questions to consider. I am troubled with the idea of having a consideration of projects that are here, I'll restate it this way. I think using parkland as an exemption and the consideration of parkland as a use for common good is so broad that it will defeat the purpose of having our RGB. I think that will just start chipping away at what we have. So I was not in favor of that. I think the second question of does municipality support CRPA and the Lucy Committee developing an amendment to the current agreement to define criteria and a process for parkland? I guess my question still is, or that I have, from the presentation today in that meeting, is because the parks are considered one EDU, and because this park is not contiguous, it cannot go through the minor DRI. So if it was greater than 50 EDUs, if that's what the assumption was, that it was more than 50, would it go through the major DRI process? Would it be eligible for that?
Yeah, it could go through the major DRI process.
Okay, that's what I thought I was understanding from that discussion. That's what I thought made the most sense. And then incorporating that into a 537 plan update process, whereby that request would be made. I think that makes sense. I think it leaves out ambiguity. I think it still preserves the integrity of the regional growth boundary, but allows this process for this particular lot area to get incorporated into the RGBs and the sewer service area. That's where I left that with. So, I really, really appreciate Pam coming and giving us this presentation because it's a complicated subject. And so I really appreciate that overview you gave.
Tyler.
Yeah, thank you for the presentation, the overview, history. I appreciate all that. I do have a question, and I just kind of want to elevate it out of maybe these policy questions for a moment. But it's not clear to me what problem we're trying to solve.
We're trying to figure out does it make sense that public parkland has a simpler process than having to go through the major DRI process? And Harris Township is asking it to be considered not a major DRI.
But there is a process. It's just we want something faster. Can you help me understand this?
Right, they'll have to hire a consultant and go through and answer these questions and then have to go through the process of getting all of the general forum to agree that this should be part of the regional growth boundary. And there, as you can see from the prior map, there aren't a lot of spots outside of the regional growth boundary. And it's also in an area where there's recharge protection, so they feel like they should be getting some credit for moving to septic for that solution, and so it doesn't need all of the developers agreement. Now, I will say with the process, at the end of it, the municipality that initiates the DRI process has to have a development agreement. So they will have to have their own development agreement with themselves. So the process just isn't that great for a public park from a municipality. It doesn't mean we can't work through it. It just right now doesn't really address this type of situation, if you want to say.
Okay, so is the process, is that an ordinance or a law, or is that something that has just been enacted at COG?
It's a resolution, so every
Okay.
municipality passed a resolution that agreed to this agreement, which maybe was attached, it's on our website, but yes, there is a implementation agreement that in 2023 was passed by resolution by each municipality.
I'm always a fan, and I'll just share my thoughts here. I'm always a fan of getting to the yes or no faster.
Right.
And then if it's a no, having a process to say, okay, now we need more information.
Right.
So whatever that looks like out of these questions, that's what I would be in favor of, is getting to the yes, no quickly. And then if it's a no, okay, now we need more information. So whatever that looks like, maybe that's just something I'd like to see in the policy or in the discussion going forward. Thank you.
Ms. Stevens, anything?
No, I'm still trying to wrap my head around it. And so Lisa, you're sort of suggesting number 2 and number 3? Was that what you're saying the discussion was around?
Yeah, and we incorporated that number 3 to, I think, maybe streamline it and also to make it clearer the intention. And so I think, I understand trying to make it quicker, but I don't know. I think to the point, what is the issue that we're trying to solve here? I think, it's unfortunate what's happened with the larger septic system that's not going to be permitted, but we do have that luxury trailer option. So it's not that there are no options. And I'm wondering what the original thought was. I guess the original thought was the septic thing whenever the first master plan was approved. So I think that there had to have been some consideration of, well, what if that isn't going to meet DEP standards? So I'd be surprised if that wasn't a consideration at the time. So yeah, I think, there is a major DRI process. I think I understand the problem of parkland having only consideration as one EDU and changing those things. But beyond that, I'm not sure how much farther we need to go in making an exemption for parks or COG-owned facilities.
Yeah, and I'll just reframe, we are not asking for the exception anymore, and certainly not for just COG-owned facilities. It's looking at developing a criteria and process for public facilities, because in the case, I'll say, of Oak Hall Park, they have a permanent facility for restrooms, and it is with septic land mound that they have. So it takes up a lot of their space, but it provides open space at the time. At Hessfield, they currently prior to, I'll say this year, but sometime last year, were thinking that they could do a vault system, but DEP is not allowing that beyond 5 years. So you could put and pay the money for a vault system, and within 5 years you have to connect to sewer because of the recharge and the protection of the groundwater. So they would have to do a septic system with land, and then it takes up more of their space. They'd have to take out a field. It just doesn't economically make sense. The luxury trailers are an option, and that was one of the motions that happened at the Facilities Committee. However, Harris Township is not interested in moving that forward until they get some resolution on whether they're going to get public sewer at their facility, because they feel that all regional parks, at the foundation of when the regional parks were formed, that each municipality was getting a park that was of a certain type and of scale. with certain features, of which public restrooms were part of the master plan.
Can I ask one follow-up question on that?
Yes, ma'am.
Pam, could you explain a little bit about going with the Act 537 plan? Because I do appreciate the thoughts of Harris, and I think the luxury trailers at this point would be the thought was maybe that would be a temporary situation until the Act 537 plan update went through at whatever point that does. Could you just explain that process a little bit?
Yeah, so once the comprehensive plan is done or near enough done, and next year I imagine it'll be part of the budget discussions on how we would fund and plan the next Act 537 plan. That Act 537 plan has not been updated since 2006 is what I think, maybe it's 2010. But there's been several special studies done to keep it updated, but we are due for a regional retake of and evaluation of it all. So in 2027 would be the earliest that it would start. We would work with the UAJ, with the consultant to get that plan done, and it generally can take 3 years. So again, Harris is looking at all that time in process if we wait to the full Act 537 plan. Now, that Act 537 plan includes the current implementation agreement and all the special studies that have done. So the implementation agreement needs to be updated by 2028. So sometime in the 2027, we're going to be updating the implementation agreement. They all feed into the Act 537 plan.
So just again, clarifying question here. You mentioned that essentially all parks would be created equal. That seems like a statement that was historical. At what point was that statement or that mantra put out there? Last 5 years, 20 years, 50 years? I'm just...
Pre-COVID, I would say, because it was when the regional parks were initially, when Welch Pool was built, that might have been the first one of the regional parks, right? There was Welch Pool, Oak Hall, Whitehall Regional Road Park, and then Hessfield. Patton, Park Forest Pool. So I think when the pools started, so it's probably been over a decade.
Okay, that's more contemporary than, so that thank you, I appreciate that, and not something where 45 years ago somebody sitting at a table decided this one idea. Right. Okay.
It's when sort of the regional parks and some of the plans started coming forward, and they all agreed on this regional park idea.
Great, thank you.
When do you need answers to these questions, ma'am?
I'm hoping to have them at least by the end of the year.
Okay. Yeah. So we'll bring this as an agenda item for December 2nd to deliberate more fully. But are there any more questions so that we can then deliberate and have formal action on December 2nd from anyone?
If I may just clarify a question, after we, so I'll stop saying that, after we go back there, provide input, who does this go back to in COG then for deliberation?
The Lucy Committee. So basically, we've heard from Patton, Harris. I was at the borough last night, and I don't know where College of Half Moon are, but that information will come back to the Lucy Committee, and basically that will give them the information to decide how to respond to Harris with their letter, and if it results in any work tasks, work plan for CRPA for 2026.
Okay, great, thank you.
My only comment on this was I guess I'm a bit disappointed in that I think when the pools were built, Whitehall Regional Road, when it was built, they all went through the normal process as any other citizen goes through. So I'm not totally in favor of.
So Whitehall Regional Road did get a regional growth boundary, like a DRI.
Exactly, wasn't an exception.
But it didn't, right, and they're not asking for an exception. They are asking for a clarifying change in the process.
Right. So we want to now do something
They
different.
did originally ask for the exception, but they understand that's not going to be granted.
Right. So now there's a new process for parks. And so I think even with Lisa's kind of clarifying question of, well, what if we go over 50? They'd use the major well, okay, so why not just use the minor for this? And, I think that's a very difficult piece of land, and we're kind of, at least the crux of this, kind of the genesis of this, and sometimes the right thing is to not develop, is to not do it. As Lisa said, there's an option, one of three things, and we went with the one thing that will work. The other things won't work, and so I'll leave that there. So now we're at, like, now we want to change or add another process, another route, when the other two routes were just fine, question mark?
Yeah. They don't work well for public facilities. So if the Borough Water Authority realized that where they are, and again, this is hypothetical, I'm just giving you some others. This came forward because of Hessfield, and when we looked at the process and talked to prior staff that were involved with this, it was all geared towards developers and development and the impact that that growth would have. There is not a process for a public facility, for a fire station, for consideration of something that isn't increasing growth. And again, there may be that concern if you create this spot that growth will come around it. There can be protections for it, and Pine Grove Mills is one of those examples where there hasn't been additional breaching of the growth boundary. But so it is, points are well taken, but that is where there is not really a good process for a public facility. So we're recognizing that and asking if this is something that needs to be dealt with more next year, part of the process. And the first question is, do you think regional public parks should have restroom structures? So those are the reasons for the three questions.
Copy. Copy. All right. No, I appreciate it. We'll deliberate on it next month and get back with you. And I guess if we have any clarifying questions, we can ask that. But no, thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you.
Just to clarify, it's what, about $600,000? What were some of the numbers just to do some of this? I mean, this is a big price tag, so I have a lot of concerns with going this way and then the whole general.
Right. So
cost.
we're not asking you to commit to the financial side.
Right.
You know that.
Right.
From this study that was done, and it's, not an engineering number that we got, it's between $1 and $1.5 million to get sewer to Hessfield.
Thank you. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Adams.
Thank you.
All right, we'll move on to our authorities, boards, and commission reports. University Area Joint Authority presented by Mark Kunkel. And I do believe Wesley's also. They're working together.
Sewer's a good segue to this report. Again, Mark Uncle, I'm one of your representatives on the University Area Joint Authority, and pleased to present a quarterly report on my behalf and Wes Lee, who's your other representative. I think included in your packet, you had a copy of the November or third quarter report that I've provided to you. I'm going to highlight just a couple of things, and if you have questions on others, I'll be glad to try to answer those. The first one is the ozone disinfection process that we have finally reached a final completion on that. That replaces our ultraviolet disinfection process with ozone. As it indicates here, it has high beneficial use with regard to disinfection and destruction of pharmaceuticals, endocrine disruptors, and PFAS, which currently are being found in a lot of wastewater treatment facilities. That's going to reduce our annual operating expense by $110,000 based on 2021 electric rates. The second big project is about a $74 million project that the authority has been undergoing for about 12 to 13 months now. It's anaerobic digester and sludge dryer. This is replacing the composting process that had been in existence with the authority for a number of years. This will allow us to accept biosolids and organics. We're going to be taking biosolids from a number of other wastewater treatment facilities in the area, and we're currently in discussions with the Center County Recycling and Refuse Authority with regard to organics. In fact, tomorrow afternoon we'll be looking at a proposed agreement with them that will help them divert a lot of these organics out of landfill and into the digester. It's going to produce methane gas, which we're going to be able to actually put back into the pipeline and sell at a profit. So this is going to have some very positive economic impacts on the authority, as well as reducing our operating expenses by $500,000 a year. And I would urge anybody that really wants to look into this project, there's a site on the UHA website that will allow you to really take a walk through the process and the project. Third thing I want to report in is the rate dispute that we have with State College Borough. You've read about this in the newspaper, heard about it, I'm sure, on TV, etc. We're hoping that the case is going to go to Common Pleas Court in the first half of 2026. Currently, the borough owes sewage rates as well as interest and fines, about $3.8 million to the authority right now, and even through mediation process, et cetera, we haven't been successful in coming to the conclusion with that. So we'll hope that the court can resolve that issue quickly. Next thing I'd like to report on is an alternative rate study. We've been engaged with Raftelis, a consultant, for about a year and a half now. They've wrapped up their study, but what we're looking at is a different rate methodology for non-residential properties based upon water volumes that are being billed to the non-residential property, and converting that to an EDU rate and then billing based upon that, rather than the current 1950 EDU rate table that was developed by the EPA and really has not been updated. So we are in the process of looking at that. This has been a long process. I think we are taking our time and doing due diligence on making sure that whatever we come up with is both consistent with the Municipal Authorities Act and has a reasonable and uniform provision to it. And last thing is, tomorrow we'll also get a report on getting the 2026 budget. I don't have that in my hands yet. Staff has said it'll be available to us by the end of November, but that'll be informative with regard to any rate increases that would be included in a rate resolution that the authority board will be considering probably sometime in December or early January. So that's my report this evening. I know you have other things on your agenda, so I'll keep it short.
Thank you. Let's see, we'll start with Ms. Stevens.
No questions.
Mr. Eller?
Just a quick clarifier, the anaerobic digester, 75 million? What was that?
$74 million project.
Okay. 74 million.
Yep, it was all done through revenue bonds, and it has a positive cash flow to it at the end.
Mr. Thompson, any questions?
I am good, thank you.
Ms. Stevens?
Strickland.
Strickland?
No, thank you. I appreciate the report. Thanks.
I had two questions. The ozone the ozone thing. There's still trials?
Well, there is a lot of tweaking, and it goes with transferring from an ultraviolet system, which is we weren't even actually get parts towards the end of this whole process. So, the useful life of it is over with. But we're gone through the trials. There's been some issues with certain types of valves. Ozone is a very corrosive type of material, And so we've had some valve issues, but the manufacturer and the installer are standing behind that. It is fully operational now. We've transferred off of the UV system.
That's fantastic. And I was actually, when I was thinking about this after the tour, I said, man, when the ozone kind of, the destroy is the interesting word. It's breaking apart that chemical that's hard to break apart. It's
Right.
literally
PFAS material, yeah.
right, but there's still fluoroalkyl particles still in what we're. I would. This is now taking me to the next one. I would love a tour for 2026.
Good.
Is that
You're
an
really getting
opportunity?
into the weeds of the technical piece.
I
of it.
love it. I'm a nerd. Sorry. So it would. If the board's okay, maybe we can request a 2026 tour.
Yep. Once we're operational, I think you'll be amazed at the technology that's being used at the wastewater treatment facility.
Fantastic.
Trevor, are you in? Yeah?
And the other thing is there kind of a consolidated list of here's how much we're saving? It's in each of the things, but does UAJ have a one pager on all the savings?
I think we can provide that to
Annually.
you. If you look at the last page of my report, there is some consolidation of some of those savings by each of those projects there. But if you need more detail, I'll be glad to provide that.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay.
What if there's something canned? They have to be out there, kind of showing the world via pamphlet or something at these conferences all the good works that they're doing. So I'm just wondering if there's anything available,
Okay.
readily available. Thank you. We good? All right. Thank you, sir. All right, we'll move on to our next agenda item, the Coggan Regional Committee reports. Finance Committee, Mr. Heller.
Yes, my report is in the agenda. Any questions? No, I'm kidding. I can go into detail. We do that in other committees, though, don't we?
Yes, we do.
Yes, we do. But no, folks will see that. I think the things I wanted to at least note here were, of course, that the state budget was passed. In case folks missed that, which is a big step forward. And looks like 7.1% increase in public libraries across the state. So we're actually hopefully going to see some money from that. We also did the budget action item follow-up, kind of an after-action report. What can we do better, et cetera. And then finally, more fund balance policy updates, specifically relating to code. And because of the fund balance policy discussions, we're actually going to hold a meeting in December, which is usually canceled, to go ahead and continue the conversation about fund balance policies and keep working through that process.
Wow.
Happy to answer any questions.
Anyone online, any questions? Mr. Thompson. Okay. Mr. Stevens.
No.
I don't have
Anything for
questions for
yourself?
myself. No,
All right.
I'm good.
No, I'm good. No, thank you, sir. Public Safety Committee, we had kind of a lone agenda item around, sadly, active violence training. I think something for the public, 3 words: run, hide, fight. If you can't run and you can't hide, then you need to go ahead and grab something and fight and maybe help save something. But those are the 3 magic words. There's a YouTube video that we can perhaps put on the site, but sadly we have to talk about these things. But it is something that Ferguson Township is the leader of. I think they were saying that the police have been doing training here, and there's some other mediums by which folks don't have to do it live. I'll pause there. And then Executive Committee, I did go to all 15 minutes of that meeting, Mr. Thompson. But it's an aggregation of all the other committee meetings, so nothing really to add to what was in the agenda.
It's only 15 minutes because I had to go out. I had to leave town today at that time to get to where I needed to be in time. Mr. Chairman, if I may, I do have some things to report from the special committee meeting that was held prior to the regular session this afternoon.
Oh, that'll be great, sir. Thank you.
All right, so these will be moving forward to general forum. The committee, we've been talking about a little bit of consolidation refinement of the COG committees. There was consensus of not seating the HR and Facilities Committee for the first half of 2026. Now that there is a full-time facilities manager and we have an HR department of 2 highly trained, seasoned professional HR representatives, there's not necessarily a need for a committee, and some of the work that would go through committee could possibly go through the executive committee or any other applicable committees. So the executive director provided a memo, and I'll be sure to point these materials out to the manager and the executive assistant to try to get these to you, or you can even just find them on the COG SharePoint if you want to take a look at how that meeting went today. Those materials, as well as the recording, and just how the task will be dispersed. A little bit of discussion regarding the Lucy and CAA, Climate Action Sustainability Committee, possibly consolidating those, but that looks to be a matter that will be discussed amongst those committees, as well as the Center Region Planning Agency staff. And then looks like we're going to bring forward a recommendation of just an ad hoc committee of 7 members to define a parks library committee, just something to be able to support those 2 departments. It sounds like some of that will build off of, possibly even build off of what we've learned through the Parks Governance Committee on moving forward there. So more to come. Not everything's going to like transition overnight. There will be a phase in, and even the not seating our HR and Facilities Committee, there was a little bit left up in the air. Like, if this is something we realize later on in those first 6 months, maybe we need to keep this committee or do something different. That's always a possibility as well. So a little bit of piloting of these, and a lot more discussion amongst committees and the general forum going forward on that. So.
Excellent. Thank you, sir. Anything?
Thank you.
Ms. Stevens, anything? Ms. Strickland? Questions, comments?
No, thanks.
Ms. Stevens?
Nothing, thank you.
Mr. Heller? All right. Thank you, Mr. Thompson.
Thank you.
And we'll move on to department reports. Madam Manager.
Thank you. Provided with the agenda is a departmental report. Happy to answer any questions, as well as department heads here. So we'll assist with answering questions the board may have.
We'll start online. Mr. Thompson? Ms. Strickland?
No, thanks.
Ms. Stevens?
Nothing, thank you.
Mr. Heller?
I just want to say again, hats off to our police department, because I sit here and I read through the report and I look at all the different calls that we get. And it's everything from unfortunate things like suicidal male to fun run at school. It's everything. Downed wires, lost cat, lost hiker. There are so many things here, and I just want to encourage folks in the public to take a look and see what our police are called upon to do, because it's everything. It truly is. I'm curious, and I can talk offline about this: loud music and basketball. Ooh, I don't know about that one, but the basketball really threw me. So again, I just want to say thank you. to our police, truly, for everything that they do.
Thank you. I'll pass that along.
I appreciate that.
And I had a couple of questions on some of the planning stuff. So zoning and hearing, so it's canceled because of lack of items. Is this good news? Meaning like no one's trying to, we are coming in with things that are clear use and no need to appeal to the zoning and hearing board? Is that the
That's
good news?
generally just a result of no action required. I would say it depends on if you're the resident or if you're staff looking to see if you are needing to work later in the evening that night. I would say I'll look to the planning and zoning director to see if she has any comments specific to your question.
No, I'd agree. There were no variance requests. There was not an appeal. So just simply lack of agenda items. The goal is not to have those cases. It's just a form of relief.
Copy that. Thank you. I saw that there were a couple of conditional plans that were still, I mean, it's been 4 to 6 months now. I guess we're out of it. We've done our part, or is there something else coming from those conditional approvals?
I'll look to the planning and zoning director to respond.
If you're referring to the pending plans with conditional approval?
Yes.
So those are in their 5-year phase. The preliminary plan's been approved and they have 5 years to come back. So those are the dates that the conditions were accepted.
Copy. So we're just out of it. They either going to do something or they're not, and they've got 5 years to do it.
Yeah, they all have various forms of continued communication there, so I don't think any of them are completely gone.
Okay. Very good. And then so that's all for on the planning items. On the police, I did see that there was some, I guess, year-to-date decreases. And any trends that you were seeing from any of that information?
No, the only one I would note was under the part 1, the assaults, and that's been something that, as I understand from just being relatively new in this interim role, talking to some other area departments, that's been a trend across the center region recently, with some assaults increased over last year, the past couple of years, or I'm sorry, this year. I was in a meeting at the borough last week, and there were 3 departments represented, and they made mention of also seeing an increase in assaults. Most of them are at the simple assault level versus aggravated assault. But that's the only thing that really was notable from a review of the report for year to date.
Copy that. Thank you. And to Public Works, I saw that the final brush collection's coming this week, and are people using Citizen Request Center to help you kind of make data-driven decisions, or we kind of just have our routes and we're going with it?
So I'll ask for James, our assistant manager, transitioning to Public Works Director, to chime in, but I'll note that we receive those inquiries in various different ways. The Citizens Request Portal is one certain avenue that our residents utilize. They still call in, and quite frequently we even get those that stop in the lobby and have some conversation and provide some questions. But I'll look to James to see if he has some additional comment.
Yeah, to that point, we do receive different requests. One thing to note is I have received requests from residents that said, they had put brush out for collection, but maybe there was a car parked in front of their location, or something else happened, and it would have precluded or made it difficult for the township to pick something up. So they felt, oh no, this was the last date, and now it's still there and it's not being picked up. But just a reminder that the brush needs to be on the curb on the date that is stated, and then the Public Works road crew utilizes the week to go through and pick that up. So if they don't get it one day, they'll come back and get it the next day, and we keep track of that. Otherwise, it's standard other than that, so it's keeping everyone busy.
Great, thank you. I saw just in the Division of Engineering lots of stuff done, item complete, so excellent. My question was, did we get everything let on time this year? such that we're not gonna have any carryovers through the end of this year?
It's possible that we will. Some of those items were already, that were included in the budget, for things that were, expected to be carried over. So, for instance, now we're in the process of, finalizing the Tootie Park Playground replacement. That was one of the ones that, it's likely to be concluded, for the beginning of spring. But everything else that is in there was either identified in the budget already as needing to be moved over, or it's been completed. So I think the outstanding items were the Blue Course and Atherton signal upgrade, the Martin Street mid-block crossings, Science Park crossing, the Tootie Park playground replacement, the Martin Street pedestrian crossings and the Science Park crossing. Those are both pending. They both have grants associated to them or associated with them from PennDOT and the state LSA fund. And so with the budget being delayed, we're looking to get those approvals back, and hopefully we can move forward with those. So those are just kind of sitting until we get that notification one way or another. But the other ones, we'll see how fast they can be wrapped up, but that's the plan.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
And then just one small question on the MSFAR, the new one. How far out until we see something on that?
I don't have any, and I don't know when
Okay.
they'll officially say something or another, but we're kind of just in a holding pattern right now with MS4. So.
Great, thank you, and I believe I've hit all parts of the report. I think so, yeah. All right, on to our next agenda item. We'll move to major section 6, unfinished business, a public hearing on an ordinance of the Township of Ferguson repealing Chapter 7, Part 2, Sections 202 through 204, fire hydrant assessments, in parentheses. I'll call on Manager Martin.
Thank you, Chair. So provided with the agenda is a detailed narrative. I'll summarize in short. At its regular meeting on October 21st, the Board of Supervisors authorized advertisement of a public hearing to consider an ordinance repealing Chapter 7, Part 2, Sections 202-204 of Ferguson Township's Code of Ordinances related to the fire hydrant assessment. The proposed repeal removes sections governing assessment for installation, assessment for operations, and the collection of hydrant assessment fees. And so what's being proposed this evening for the board's consideration is to conduct the public hearing as you give consideration for continued dialogue with a decision to take formal action on the moving forward beginning in 2026. Hydrant related expenditures would be covered by the surplus funds that we have introduced and previously discussed with the board, I believe in the amount of $192,000. The expenditures for 2026 would be covered by the surplus funds. And then also detailed, which would be presented in the ordinance, would be that the board would receive in maybe Q3 or Q4 a resolution to take action on how to properly expend those funds that may be remaining after expenditures are utilized. And we would then have time at a staff level to consult with the auditor to properly gauge what options would be considered for your consideration, and also vet that with legal as well. So moving forward, the ordinance is to repeal section 202-204 of Part 2 of Chapter 7, understanding that in 2026 we're proposing that residents do not receive a fee, and we cover all of the expenditures used as the surplus that's currently in the fund balance. Board receives a resolution to take formal action on how to properly expend those funds, being informed by the auditor and vetted by legal, and then at which point the board can then determine and confirm closure of that fund. I'm happy to answer any questions the board may have.
Thank you, Madam Manager. Who have I not started with? I think I've been around the horn. We'll start online. Mr. Thompson, anything? Oh, wait. Do I public hearing? I'm so sorry. I will now open the public hearing. Sir.
I am good over here, but proceed with the public hearing.
Thank you.
Just a quick clarification, Mark Kunkel of Ferguson Township. Section 2 of the ordinance talks about the termination of the fund. The second sentence, any remaining balance shall be retained for the exclusive purpose of satisfying outstanding hydrant-related obligations prior to January 1 of 2026. That's in 6 weeks. Do you really mean December 31st of 2026? I mean, you want to have the funds available for 2026.
All right. Anything else?
Okay. I just think the date's wrong.
Copy that.
Okay.
Ms. Strickland.
Nothing yet, thank you.
Ms. Stevens.
No, sounds like staff is comfortable with a plan for next year, and I'm good.
Mr. Allen.
So just a clarifying point related to the date there, we're essentially saying anything before, 6 weeks from now would be covered or would be paid for. That's what that statement is making, right? That's how I'm interpreting.
Correct.
Okay.
What do you do with the funds after?
Excuse me, could you go to the podium, please, if you have further comment?
Public comment is over.
Point of order, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
I don't believe I heard that the public hearing was closed.
You're right. I didn't say it. Therefore, sir,
And I don't even recall anyone else being offered an opportunity for public comment, so please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Thompson. Any other public comment? Ma'am. Oh, man, I messed that up.
Kayla Coral, Ferguson Township resident. Thanks for trying to slide a fast one in there. Thank you,
You're
Mr.
welcome.
Thompson, for catching that. So I'll just piggyback. What's going to happen with the funds after if they're not used? But secondly, I do want to say thank you for knocking out the fact that you're going to give us, those that pay, a break for the transparency part, because last session in there, you were just going to put another fee on there and spread it across, and then we're going to have a surplus in an account that didn't matter. So I just want to make that clear, but I would like to know also what's the intention of anything that's over in that account.
Thank you. Online, any public comment online? And I'm going to come back to the room for any additional public comment. And I'm going to go online one more time. All right, I will now close public comment. Team, Supervisor, we'll go around the horn here one more time. Mr. Thompson?
I'm good, thank you.
Ms. Strickland?
Nothing, thanks.
Ms. Stevens?
I'm fine, thank you.
Mr. Heller?
No.
Okay, so now I have some questions. Based on, I think I want to summarize, the plan here is to repeal this hydrant fee. And then we're going to dry out the funds as much as we can for 1 year and then figure out what to do after that?
I always appreciate your summary. So to dry out, just to summarize in a way that I can fully invest in understanding. I apologize, I'm not real good on this cool language, but yes.
Cool.
So all of the expenditures that the township is obligated to pay related to the fire hydrant that we pay every year, the township will meet those obligations with those surplus funds and not administer the fee. like we have annually. We will not administer a fee in 2026, but we will cover all of the expenditures related to fire hydrants in the township with the surplus. And then you are correct, we would, through the auditing process next year, engage and consult with the auditor to solicit what are some reasonable options that we can bring to the board as to how you may consider by resolution through a policy document properly utilizing those funds, and then also vet it with legal, bring it back for your consideration in Q3 or Q4 prior to closing out the fund. So I can't explicitly state what we'll do or what options we'll bring, but I can share with you that the time frame will allow for staff to properly engage and consult with the auditor to ensure that it's done properly and then vetted with legal before bringing it to you for your consideration.
So between today and January 2026, we're going to shell out $120K. I'm going to make these numbers up. Between today and January 2026, we're going to shell out $120K for some stuff associated with hydrants. And there'll be roughly, I'm making this up, $40K in that fund. And so then when the auditor comes here in January, February, March timeframe to do the audit, we're going to ask them, what should we do with the $40K?
That is correct.
Are we going to pay them any more for that? Or is that just part of their...
Generally, we've asked in the past several questions related to what's your recommendation on this? How might we consider moving forward on that? We do not get billed for those questions, so I would not anticipate billing a bill for those questions moving forward.
Copy. So why wouldn't we just use the remainder of that funds for 2026? Why do we need to figure out what to do with it?
So we'll utilize the surplus for obligations up until January of 2026 and through December 31st of 2026. We'll utilize the surplus to pay for any related expenditures for all of fiscal year 2026.
What's the importance of January 2026? Like, why not just go through January 2027 and use all of those dollars that are in that fund? Maybe that's a better question.
I appreciate the way you asked the question. It really will determine on the billing from State College Borough Water Authority. And so I'll look to our finance director to ask how and when we get billed. Do we get billed on a quarterly basis for fire hydrants, or is it monthly, or is it annually?
It's quarterly.
Quarterly, thank you. So by the end of Q3, we will know exactly what our remainder of payment would be. But we can also just budget what our entire annual obligation will be as we have those conversations with the auditor as to how best to expend those funds. If that makes sense.
Why aren't we asking the auditor how to spend the funds for this year? You know what I mean? Like, what's the difference between asking the auditor in February or March versus asking the auditor today?
We're not naturally engaged with the auditor right now, so it's just recognizing that there's competing priorities right now. We don't expect that if we call the auditor tomorrow that we're going to get an answer tomorrow. It generally takes time to get on the schedule and have these conversations. What I can say is that we will be naturally engaging with them as early as March to begin the process for the township to have their audit completed. At which point in time, they're on site several days to conclude the audit process. It's just a natural opportunity to ask them. It's recognizing that we don't have to do that action this evening paired with the repeal of the ordinance. It allows for, once the board has taken formal action this evening, it allows for staff then to go and then your next agenda item, depending on your formal action that you take on that agenda item, it will allow staff to then between tomorrow and the next time we release the next agenda for the Board of Supervisors, it allows for us to properly prepare and update the budget. It allows for us to create those accounts so we can properly reflect what action needed to be taken to ensure the budget reflects your formal action on these two items.
Okay. Mr. Tyler.
So apropos, and because we talk about these two items, because the next item as well, but I'll admit this, I'm a little muddled between the narrative and the recommended motion. Because the recommended motion says essentially to think about doing something, okay, do we need a motion to say we think about doing something to consider adoption? Okay, we're considering it, but I don't see a consideration as a motion.
Well, I'll help you out
Help me
there.
out.
You, sir, can move however you want.
Well,
And somebody else can second whatever motion you want. I would not go by, I personally,
Yeah.
throw recommended motions out the door unless I actually find them to be what I want. Because I'll make it what I want, and I'm just giving you some.
No, and I'll certainly wordsmith, but I think my concern is this is the first time I haven't really gotten a connection between the narrative and the motion on two of these, and including the last item as well. And I don't understand why the verbiage or the approach to consider adoption, that doesn't seem like any motion that I've seen before, even though it would have to be amended to actually meet, the sniff test of what a motion is. So I was muddled in reading this again. Just if I'm having this question, maybe there are others. I don't know.
Okay. All right, so I think in my chair duties here, I will. I think the action that we need to take is to, number one, repeal the fee. That's the brass tacks of it, and I believe that we should just use the rest of the money for hydrant stuff, and then after it's all used, then the hydrant, whatever's, once it gets to zero, then the general fund takes over. That seems to be simple, and I think asking the auditor is certainly a thing that we can do, that staff can do based on what I'm hearing. They'd like to just make sure it's all ticked and tied, and that action can still happen. But I don't want to come back and talk about this again. We should just use those dollars for what they originally charged for and move forward there. So I can say what I'm willing to entertain, or one can tell me what they want, or can make the motion as they deem appropriate. So I will entertain a motion to repeal the fire hydrant assessment and allow the current fund to go to $0 and be closed.
Second.
No, I can't make a motion.
No.
As chair, so somebody has to say so moved.
So moved.
Second.
It's been properly moved and seconded. Discussion.
I just would like to clarify with staff that is acceptable.
That is fine.
Right.
It'll be a roll call vote.
All right, hearing nothing else, this is a roll call vote. Madam Manager.
Thank you, Chair. This is a roll call vote to repeal the fire hydrant assessment, allow for current fund to be expended to $0 and then be closed, as I heard the motion. And I will begin the roll call vote. Chair Patterson?
Yes.
Supervisor Stevens?
Yes.
Supervisor Heller?
Yes.
Supervisor Strickland?
Yes.
Supervisor Thompson?
Yes.
Thank you, Chair. The roll call vote passes unanimously.
Thank you. And we'll move now to the next item to hear public hearing on an ordinance for enactment of a special fire protection tax ordinance. Madam Manager.
Thank you. At the board's regular meeting on November 3rd, you may recall the board had directed staff and to prepare a revised draft of the special fire protection tax ordinance for consideration and for this public hearing to be held this evening. The proposed ordinance establishes a dedicated 1 mil real estate tax beginning in fiscal year 2026 to provide stable funding source for fire protection services within Ferguson Township. The levy authorized this ordinance to generate approximately what we shared previously, about $616,117 in 2026, to be used exclusively to support Township's annual allocation to the Center Region Council of Governments for the Fire Protection Program, and direct those contributions to the regional volunteer fire companies serving Ferguson Township. And provided with the agenda is a pretty detailed breakdown of the sections, and provides information that explains that if enacted, this ordinance will establish a fire protection fund that is restricted to ensure transparent financial management of the fire service revenues and expenditures. I'm happy to answer any questions the board may have regarding this agenda item.
I will start by opening public hearing. Any members of the public? Sir?
Appreciate the opportunity to talk about this again this evening. I believe on Saturday I provided a copy of a spreadsheet and a memo to each of the board members and to the manager. There was some discussion at the previous meeting about the understanding how the general fund and the fire services tax fund are going to work in 2026. And there was some difficulty in conceptualizing the way that the financing is going to work. And I think Centrice's memo has clarified the fact that you'll be moving the expenditures from the general fund to the fire services tax fund for 2026. So I don't know, I guess, James, you don't have that. I don't know if you have a copy of the spreadsheet in front of you, Matt, you do? What I did was I provided you a comparison of the cost of fire protection services that have been expended out of the general fund for 2024, 2025, and projected 2026. And I think that since we're talking about the 2026 budget, I think it's important to focus on that. So in 2026, the proposed budget shows costs for fire protection services that include the COG fire contribution, Warriors Mark fire contribution, the Port Matilda fire contribution of $519,634. That is budgeted for in the general fund. On top of that now, you're going to add a 1 mil fire services tax that's going to generate $616,117. So essentially what you're going to do is move $519,000 of expenditures out of the general fund to the new fire services tax fund. And now you're going to have $519,634 of revenue, of income that is additional to the general fund. My question is, what are you going to do with that? Because essentially you are billing the residents twice for the same service. You're collecting revenue, let me say that, for the same service. Does that make sense? Are you following me?
So I was trying to keep it to public comment, but yes, I am following you. And I will talk about my disagreements when the board discussion ensues. And agreements, by the way. I
thought that there might be an opportunity for you to ask me a question about it if you were unclear.
I do. Actually, I do. Yeah, I'm good with questions. So the $519,000 that were in the budget as of 2 months ago when we had budget season, a month ago, budget season. That was operating, did it include capital?
Include your entire contribution for COG fire protection services.
Both operating and capital?
And operating. It's all lumped done in one.
Okay. Yeah, I'll maybe, we'll look at that. And then, your question is, my question back to you, your question, just confirming your question, that is, when the special tax is enabled, which is specifically for fire, what is going to happen with the dollars associated that were already in the budget from last month?
In the general fund budget, right.
Copy, right.
So essentially, if it all works out the way it shows,
yeah,
you're just increasing your fund balance by a little over $500,000.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And again, during board discussion, I'll be asking some questions of staff, which will likely illuminate exactly what you're asking. Do you have any questions for Mr. Cole?
At this point, no, but appreciation for the spreadsheet and the time, because I too have some concerns around the 519 going forward here and what this will look like. So I would appreciate maybe consideration for open dialogue as we get into this portion, if we're allowed to go ahead, or will we be closing the public hearing, hard stop?
Well, we should open dialogue with whom?
Well, I'm curious to hear your thoughts that might be for staff that I would appreciate maybe Mr. Kunkel's perspective on, but if we can't open into that dialogue, then
I'll stand by for recall if you need me.
I don't know if that's permitted, I'm just asking.
That's why I was talking about the rules a little bit earlier, to try to kind of have a framework of, kind of going through. But if no one else is opposed to, for this particular item, having a little bit different, a little bit more dialogue, I'm okay with it. Ms. Stevens, Ms. Thompson, Ms. Strickland, Ms. Thompson, any objections to a little bit more open dialogue on this agenda item during the public hearing?
I'm fine.
Mr. Chairman, I think we need to try to stay consistent with precedent. We do not normally engage with back and forth between members of the public during even a public hearing. If there are members of the public that would like to follow up with our staff, they are more than welcome to reach out to them. But that's my take.
There we go. Okay.
Yeah, Chair, I would just echo that. I think trying to maintain some clear, consistent, fair, transparent procedural process is important, so there's not perceived or actual special preferential treatment.
Appreciate that, and that's why I asked the board members if they had any issues, and there was an issue, so we're gonna not go that route. So thank you, sir. All right, we'll go to anyone. Ms. Coral, please come up, state your name, township of residence.
Kayla Coral, Ferguson Township resident. My disdain for this is also tied to my initial statement in educating the public. If I can't have access to you, my perception is going to be that you all are better than me and aren't willing to answer my questions. Therefore, my perception will change, just so you all understand. That really struck a nerve. I appreciate the open dialogue because that helps the clarity and the transparency that we as citizens need. The $1 million tax increase on real estate. Hear me say this. I am pro safety and security for all of my fellow residents, myself, my family, all of you, everyone involved. I will always support a mission to provide those services to my fellow residents. What is not fair is taxing on a real estate basis for that. when my portion as a farm owner is 60% more than anyone within the growth boundary. So please just take that into consideration. My real estate charge is greater because of the land in which I own than anybody inside, and I own that as a business. So just take that into consideration. Thank you.
Thanks. Just to correct the record, I don't know if maybe folks missed it. I asked about, here are going to be the general rules for each agenda item. And so I specifically said public comment, not public inquiry. I specifically said that. And I want to just make sure we're clear, and I get it, it struck a nerve because there was maybe a thought of doing it. But I also then opened it up to say, hey, board, do we want to have a change for this agenda item, which is allowed in Robert's rules, but a board member did have a concern. And so we didn't do it. I think that is the most transparent way we could have done that. Other than up front saying in the rules that yes, every agenda item we can have back and forth. I'll pause there and thank you again. Thank you for the comments. Anybody else from public comment?
Bill Keogh, Ferguson Township representative, or Ferguson Township resident. I may be out of order, but to follow up on what you just said, you must remember that this room and this body has a lot of trouble with them hearing what you say. Your last statement was very clear, but when you brought this up way back in the beginning of the meeting, you were talking in a much different voice. And hearing and understanding were not necessarily the same as the last statement you made. Thank you.
Any other public comment? Online, going once, going twice. All right, I will close the public hearing, move on to board discussion. We'll start in the room. Ms. Strickland?
I'm Ms. Stevens and no.
God bless America. Ms. Stevens, no. Mr. Heller?
So I look over the numbers and I think about them, and I have a lot of thoughts about this. I have a lot of thoughts about the 1 mil increase. I'm never a fan, as I don't believe anybody is, of tax increases. And I also, with that being recognized, recognize the context of how much things cost nowadays. And that is an unfortunate reality. Things cost more. Staff, road crews cost more. Non-union staff cost more. Union staff cost more. Police cost more. And they're all worth it. And I think about funding the people, the staff that work for the township. And for this increase, or this reallocation of funds and the 1 mil increase, I see it being more transparent, being a set aside, and allowing the township a little more flexibility and a little more income to recognize that things cost more. I wish I had a better answer. I wish I could say that there was a magic wand to wave. I don't have one. But at this point, with the cost of everything going up, I don't see other solutions. And I would rather take an ounce of preventative medicine than a pound of cure, and knowing that we have reinstated and will reinstate the tax review board here in the early part of next year, with the charge of putting us on a strategy when it comes to taxes. I think a small change now, a 1 mil change, may be appropriate. It's not the 8 mil change that State College is talking about. 8 mills. That's huge. Even with all the talk around, well, the high rises will be a better tax base and these other things are going to improve our tax base so we don't have to raise taxes, they're still looking at an 8 mil increase. That is astronomical. And I'd rather we take a little bit of pain on this one. And speaking with constituents, the temperature is a little bit is better than a huge chunk at the end. So I would say the 1 mil makes sense to me. I'll say that the tax review board being reinstated, which we agreed to last meeting, makes sense to me, with the charge of putting us on a better tax foundation and strategy going forward makes sense to me. And then they can say and make a recommendation to the board, look, we're in a good spot or we're not, because we know that cliff. We've seen the presentations on the cliff. And I will continue to fight, even though I am ready to go ahead and approve a 1 mil tax increase. I'm still ready to fight things like our LEED certified building with $30,000 of lights or whatever we were talking about the last time, instead of, finding a fluorescent one from Home Depot. That to me is ridiculous, that we spend exorbitant amounts for maybe a placard. And unless there's an ordinance that says we have to do that, I think we really need to take a hard look internally. And this isn't, anyone's fault or anything. I'm just speaking my mind on this and say what we believe in. And for me, I believe in funding the police, funding the firefighters, and everybody that I happen to see respond to a fire that happened in Pine Grove Mills on, I believe, November 6th, when multiple engines and multiple Ferguson Township police went flying by my home on the way to a propane tank that had exploded or caught fire. And I believe this is a transparent way of doing this. I don't like it. I can't believe I'm saying these things, but it is, I believe, an unfortunate result of the time. Thank you.
Mr. Thompson.
Nothing to add.
Ms. Strickland.
Thanks. I really just agree with what Matt was just saying. I think you said it very well. These costs are increasing. I agree with the concept of isolating this cost. I think it's transparent. I think as we've talked about this a few times now, so I've already said this, but as we've been told from COG, from Alpha, that these costs are only going to be increasing, and that's what we've been seeing. And I think this is a good step to make. So nothing else at this time.
All right. I have a couple of questions. Number one, Madam Chair, will this take, is there additional time? And I guess can you help me understand what that additional time commitment is to administer this new fund that would be created, the segmenting out the different taxes and making sure they're all, split in the appropriate way?
There's a slight uptick in the administrative task, right? Following formal action, the additional work will include opening up an account designated as restricted funds for a designated account, and then creating in the budget that will be presented at your next meeting with the updates for your consideration following your formal action. And it'll itemize out what anticipated expenditures are and what the anticipated revenue is, and any inter transfers that need to occur for the difference. So that's step one. That will certainly be some additional work. And then, of course, annually, as we go to reconcile those accounts, just being able to chart or reconcile what's coming in and itemizing comparatively what's going out and being able to report on that. It, in essence, will operate conceptually, right, in terms of itemizing out a separate fund. We do it for the fire hydrant fund. We itemize out what that revenue stream looks like coming into one specific fund, we itemize out what those expenditures look like. So I would say comparatively, we'll be doing something similar we've always done, just with a designated special fire protection tax. I hope that answers your question. I can't give you what an exact number of minutes or hours, but I can tell you, acknowledging, sure, there's some initial uptick in time, but it's going to be consistent as to how we've managed other funds, one of which we anticipate closing next year.
Copy. In the write-up, it says Section 2 authority that it was authorized by the Section 3205A4 of the Second Class Township Code. Ferguson Township doesn't necessarily care about that particular code, right?
Excuse me?
Ferguson Township doesn't care about that code. We can do what we want, right?
Yes, it's the legislation that affords those that were incorporated or still maintained solely as a second-class township. We've been incorporated as a second-class township in 1801. However, we became a home rule charter in 1976, and so we care in the sense that it's founding our initial how we were incorporated from Patton Township, but it's what affords us to be able to do that from our initial founding establishment.
Copy. And then I'll summarize with a question mark at the end. So the last time we got together, the original plan was to repeal the hydrant assessment and to have this fire tax designated, which would essentially deprecate, we would actually use the same fund and add to that fund and so we take care of all of our fire related expenses from that same fund, restricted fund. And then with some feedback, it then determined that we couldn't use it for the maintenance of the hydrants, which was actually a bit disappointing to me. And so where we're here today with a different plan than what we talked about from last time we got together. Question mark.
Our previous discussion was held, I believe, on, I have it written here, November 3rd. So to your question specifically, yes, this is different than how I think that we're on. Someone must have signed in. And okay, thank you. From the last discussion, November 3rd, you are correct. Also introduced initially with the proposed manager budget in, I believe, October 7th at a special meeting when we discussed the proposed manager budget. It was initially introduced as a 1 mil increase with the expenditures compared to the anticipated revenue. But to answer your question very precisely, yes, it is different than how it was last discussed.
So I guess in summary, based on all the answers to those questions, I am not in favor of this plan adjustment. Because I think I got a history lesson. When taxes were raised 15 years ago, and I read the document, there was like hey, here's going to be the tax, and we're going to designate this percentage to go to TIF, because they wanted it transparently for everybody to know that this tax increase was going to roads, or infrastructure, if you will. So I think we can take the same approach of a general fund raise. You don't have to do a different line item for one's taxes. We're just going to go from 3-point-something mils to 4-point-something mils. And then with a rider that says we take a percentage and put it into this fund that already exists, that we're going to change the name from hydrant to fire protection. And I think that might be the better approach from a closing accounts, opening accounts. You still got to reconcile, but now it's just a few more things to reconcile. But this dedicated tax also brings dedicated restrictions from the way that it's being instantiated versus just being general and going right to this. I think it's six one way, half dozen the other. But I don't know that anybody cares if it's dedicated the 1 mil. Well, I think I would ask for feedback if we move in this direction. But it's not about what you're doing, it's how you're doing it. And I think what we're doing is, and the how is either on your bill you're going to see tax increase, or on your bill you're just going to see taxes. But through this process, you know that there's a dedicated movement of those taxes to a restricted fund. So with that said, I'll entertain a motion on this agenda item.
This is Patty. I move that the Board of Supervisors, sorry, I just lost my place here. Where are we? That's an old motion, by the way. Yeah, all right. Help me with one.
You don't want mine.
Matt?
Do you want to move forward with the special assessment? Okay, so then I'd entertain.
No, please.
Okay, then if you'd like to make a motion, I'd entertain something that says something to the effect of I would entertain a motion to move forward with the special fire protection tax ordinance of 2026 as presented.
Yes, this is Patty. So moved. Moving forward with the adoption of the special fire protection tax ordinance as presented.
Can't hear the motion.
Somebody must have.
There's a hot mic. Is there a second?
I don't know who it is.
It's Wes.
There's nothing on. He's muted.
This is Lisa, I'll second.
It has been properly moved and seconded to adopt the special fire protection tax ordinance of 2026 as presented. Discussion.
I guess I wasn't following what you were proposing, and I tend to want to follow what staff has presented in the sense that they are the ones that know the accounting and that sort of thing, the auditing and what's required. So that's why I am supportive of moving forward as presented.
Anything else? Ms. Strickland, Mr. Thompson, anything?
Yeah, I'll just say, I was interested in what you were presenting, Omari. And so can you just explain a little bit about what your thought was as far as, were you suggesting just a general 1 mil increase to the general fund?
Correct.
Plus creating this account and then just doing an interfund transfer for 2026?
Correct. Exactly the same way that the TIF works. Right? There's a percentage of existing dollars that go to the TIF every year from that tax increase 15 years ago. I'm just suggesting to do the same thing that's already happening today. Yep, for a transfer of set amount.
If I may, though, that doesn't seem to match the tenor of the proposed motion, though, which is to adopt the special fire tax protection tax ordinance, which has its own 1 mil increase associated with it. So the motion as it stands right now has a 1 mil increase associated with establishing that protection, not then a transfer out of the general fund of the 1 mil. So I think the motion would have to fail if that's the proposal.
That's right.
Okay.
And Chair, if I may, I would just share with the board that while conceptually what's been presented makes sense, it could work. We can't vet or confirm, and we would need to take some time to really look into this. This was all, you might recall, we brought DCED here to do a presentation. They validated and talked about how this 1 mil increase that is per the special fire protection tax is aligned with what's legislatively possible for our municipality. So that the process to bring this proposed option forward has been well underway for several months. And I'm not at all suggesting that it's not a feasible option. I'm acknowledging that staff, your professional staff, we've not had really time to vet this, consider this, even determine if it's something that we can reasonably get through legal and bring back to you for your consideration, legally advertise and adopt with incorporation into your final budget. So I just caution you with that potential realization. And I guess I would also, you had mentioned about being educated on the history. I know I have not had a chance to really have those conversations. Can you help? I think it would be helpful for us if we had better insight as to where that education may have originated from and how, so we could look into records that might exist to understand at a staff level to pick up what's being proposed and do the proper research.
That was an old board member told me this years ago, or not years ago. I think it was last year when we were talking about the tax raise this year.
Okay.
I got that story.
So that would have been from last year from a board member regarding a previous approval of a tax strategy.
Yeah, we can talk offline on that, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I'm mindful that we've had a lot of public input, and I know that there's been, and I can provide some clarification on some representation on misclassification and omission of fire protection cost, but I just want to acknowledge that we have staff here. We're happy to talk through and answer questions. This is what we do for you all day, every day. We're happy to meet with members of the public that might have questions at any point in time, schedule a meeting with the finance director, and further explore those with ample time to be able to respond back to the notification with interest to meet with staff and review these items. I'm just very mindful about the time that we have remaining. We have 2 more regular meetings scheduled. We have a holiday between now and then, and we have staff that has PTO. And so happy to be able to talk through what this looks like, but I also just want to talk about realistic deadlines. Very well may be possible, and conceptually it sounds like it could work.
Copy that. Anything else from anyone? I'm still a hard no. This is a roll call vote, Madam Manager.
This is a roll call vote for the ordinance to enact a special fire protection tax ordinance. Chair Patterson.
No.
Supervisor Stevens.
Yes.
Supervisor Heller.
No.
Supervisor Strickland.
No.
Supervisor Thompson.
Yes.
Okay, the ordinance fails.
Very good. Chair will entertain another motion for any other action we want to take here. Said a different way, I'll entertain a motion to direct staff to prepare a general fundraise of 1 mil with a rider that 1 mil will go directly to fund fire protection. Could be the same fund as the hydrant.
I'm thoroughly confused. Sorry.
We can have it, the agenda item's still open. That motion failed. We can have any other motion for this agenda item.
So the idea of the fire protection tax. We're just gonna not do that and just instead replace it with a 1 mil tax increase. I mean, I thought the whole idea was clarity about where it was going. I'm sorry, I'm just confused, and it's maybe verbiage that
I
I'm tripped up
apologize,
on?
yeah. What I described from the language from 15 years ago, it is just as transparent to have a general fund raise with a language that says these funds will go to a restricted fund for fire. We're boxing ourselves in
Okay.
with this second-class township, at least my opinion.
We ultimately, I'm asking now of staff, we ultimately need to move forward with an increase. So it's just a matter of what we're calling it.
You don't have to move forward with an increase. And we haven't legally advertised for other options and presented, we haven't had that dialogue. It's an option for us to research alternative options, and we can certainly take into what's been considered if we're able to bring that back in a timely manner.
Is this setting us off track for our budget approval?
I can't answer that. I know we have a holiday between now and when the next board agenda packet needs to be released, and I know that we have staff that will be out on PTO, and I think conceptually it makes sense. Conceptually it could work. I also would want to explore this to ensure that it's aligned with, I understand that feedback came from a position or a concept 15 years ago, but I don't know what that looks like today. And I would need to further explore what the language would look like and what it would need to be in an ordinance. I can't answer anything factually because this isn't something that we've prepared at a staff level to discuss. And I can't confirm that we'll have all of the information presented for a release of the agenda packet, which would be the day before the holiday, which is a shorter period of time that would give us to prepare the agenda packet. So we're operating within a smaller window, a smaller period of time to get the agenda packet ready for the next meeting and being asked to do research on a completely new topic that hasn't been discovered or explored.
Uncertain times. I mean, I'm just saying that here we are, we're trying to be, clear, we're trying to be respectful of tapping our staff, and I get it, and the tax review board will be a great thing, maybe to help us figure this out next year. It just, the timing that it's putting us under right now is unfortunate.
Agreed.
And I still don't know that the tax review board is the magic bullet for everything, but.
Agreed. Is there a motion that anyone wants to make?
Not at this time.
Okay. All right. Mr. Thompson, anything? No?
I guess what is going to work with the three who did not vote in the affirmative? I think it's imperative that we shore up how we are going to get this extra revenue, which has been budgeted, and do so in a manner that gives dignity to our staff who are preparing for the holidays, preparing to wrap up their workload and yeah, I just disappointed that this has resulted in this vote for the tax increase has resulted in a failure of a motion.
Mr. Strickland, do you have a motion, Mr. Thompson? Different motion, or?
I honestly was comfortable with what we had. I don't know how else to refine it in a way that meets our legal requirements and does not add any more to the workload of the staff.
I think there's an opportunity to reprioritize here. Just an opportunity. Ms. Strickland, do you have any thoughts?
Yeah, I would just, I like the comparison with the TIF fund. I think that's worked well. And we've adjusted those percentages that go to that account from time to time, depending on other expenditures. And I think that makes sense. I do think that the tax review board will be helpful next year in reviewing this and, future associated costs will be dedicated to this fund. I think what I'm seeing more as the important part of this is establishing that fire protection fund. And so, how that revenue gets in there, I think is important to have a little bit more consideration on, given that, last time we talked about this, the hydrant costs were factored into this and they're not now. So that's a big difference between the last time we talked about this and now. So, I appreciate all the concerns, and I think, like I said earlier, I agree with isolating these costs. I think it's just the avenue that you put the revenue in, I think needs a little bit more consideration.
Sounds good. Madam Manager, what do you need to begin the investigation process on other options now that this is not going to be the option the board's moving forward with?
We could certainly make the attempt to try and bring it forward in the next meeting and have it properly advertised. It needs to be advertised 7 days prior to the next board meeting. And that would be, so 7 days prior to December 2nd, and being able to vet what that ordinance would look like and that it can be done appropriately. So if you're looking for an attempt, we can certainly craft an ordinance that would recognize that we will prepare something that is similar to the TIF. I mean, if I'm understanding you correctly, when you say we're looking for something that's not going to box us in, meaning like it's not going to restrict us, it's not going to require the same level of transparency, and we can increase it beyond the cap of 3 mils. That type of like we want to write that in, right? To be able to itemize it like the ordinance, like we do the TIF. Only it's a special fire protection tax, and so we're acknowledging in an ordinance that it's similarly written this way. Only it's not referencing the DCD second class township. It's essentially making it more flexible. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah.
So our draft mirrors what you're looking for, in our attempt to try to do this.
So what was advertised was a public hearing for an enactment of a special fire protection tax ordinance.
There's a lot to consider. I mean, I think conceptually it can work, but I really don't. I mean, I do appreciate Supervisor Thompson's comments. I mean, there's a lot in motion. There's already a work plan in place. Yeah. We have a lot going on, and operationally, it could potentially compromise if I agree to make this happen. And I hate to rush something that could move you toward formal action that might have consequences at a later time. I mean, it took a while to get where we are right here. So I just want to be mindful that we can give it our best shot, understanding that we're in a time sensitive approach forward.
If I may, I'll just continue this discussion. Our fund balance, et cetera, how are we for the next year? Can we float?
That's a great question. I mean, we have a little over $8 million in reserves. I will say our deficit is nearly $3 million in the proposed budget. And I'll also acknowledge that's, you know, our police, for example, wage increase from 2025 to 2026, plus our healthcare cost, plus our senior citizen contribution, plus our Teamsters wage rate increase from 2025 to 2026 is approximately $498,000. So it's $500,000 that we are going to see increases from the 2025 fiscal year annual operating budget to the 2026. So even if you separate out the fire expenditures, that is $519,000 in operational costs, but then you add in $192,000 of capital costs, you're actually looking at nearly $680,000. So you would have had, even with the $1 million increase under the special fire protection tax, you would have had a gap that you still would have had to have pulled from the general fund. I think moving in a direction that creates more flexibility, it can happen. But to answer your question full circle, you know, there's some uncertainties that I can't assure you here in this discussion this evening.
Yeah, so we're not going to get. I would ask for consensus from the board for two things. Number one, we raised taxes last year and it was on the general fund, right? $500,000.
Yes.
Okay. How about we potentially take that same language, you make it $1 million, and we find that one sentence from 15 years ago
well, and here's something
about dedicating to the hydrant, or, you know, and renaming that Fund 3. That's a thought.
Can I propose something, a simpler approach, and I'll look to the finance director? What if we just what if we create the ordinance that we did last year for a $1 million increase, and then at a future board meeting, we can create an ordinance that specifically identifies how we allocate those funds, similar to TIF. So tonight, right, so we have to, I think by December 15th, we have to communicate to the Center County Tax. Like, there are things we have to put in motion to declare we're going to do a mill increase. This evening, we can just, if the board would like to move forward and you just know $1 million increase, you can make that motion. It's as simple as doing the same motion we did last year. And then if the board would like to continue dialogue as to how we refine the use of those funds, similarly how we do with a TIF, we can have that future dialogue.
Okay.
Todd, and I got the nod from Todd. So there's an option for board consideration.
And so thinking about it from a Sunshine Act perspective,
Still a $1 million increase.
it's still a $1 million special fire protection tax, but we're doing it under the general. We're just changing where the funding's going. You've already done the work of the $1 million. It's just changing where it's going. Okay, so we're good on Sunshine Act. Chair will entertain a motion to
$1 million increase.
move forward with the $1 million increase, period.
Point of clarification.
Or whatever motion you want to make.
Point of clarification.
Yes, sir.
Last year's tax increase, was it on property tax?
Yes.
Okay, so it's the same.
We did the property tax
Tax.
and there was two, property tax and transfer.
Real estate transfer.
Real estate transfer
Mhm.
tax.
It was just property.
And this was just property.
Oh, so moved. This is Patty, so moved. The increase of,
Thank you,
$1
Ms.
million.
Stevens. Is there a second?
And I would like to have, Mr. Chairman, I would like to have a point of clarification. If we can move this forward tonight, or if we should go back and advertise for a public hearing next for the 2nd and then vote on that tax increase. I just want to make sure we're doing this in a legally sound way here.
This was, I mean, this agenda item is a special fire protection tax for $1 million.
Okay.
That's what we're doing. The mechanics, we're getting a car, we're putting a different engine in the car. How about that?
Okay.
So should we,
Um,
can we
I can
add
bring-
on to it?
Well, sure.
That we say that in the first what is it, in January or February, that we, I don't know what I'm trying to say. Just trying to that we put a time-sensitive thing on it where we go back to the specifics of how we are.
What was proposed by the manager was the
This is
first
the
step.
second part of
Yeah.
what the
there's-
manager, yeah.
Okay, all right.
There were 2 steps. Just do this 1
this
mil,
one.
which they've already started the process.
Okay.
And then we'll have another resolution of some sort of ordinance perhaps that says, and here's how it's split out. And we'll take care of that. It's that.
And I'll also just share, this is a more simplified version. So if the board's more comfortable just saying we want to approve legal authorization for holding a public hearing on December 3rd for just a 1 mil increase, that we can do. The exploratory discussion as to what an ordinance might look like, detailed similarly to a TIF, is the more potentially complex part of the second conversation. But if you want to take action tonight, we'll take it. If you want to just advertise for a public hearing at December 2nd to formally hold the public hearing and approve it, what you'll get is your draft budget updated according to the 1 mil increase the same evening you would take motion. So if you end up rejecting the 1 mil increase, just know we'll have to adjust that budget again for final adoption at your last meeting in December. Does that make sense? I'm trying to provide options here. You can enact it and approve the ordinance this evening, or you can acknowledge we'll just do a 1 mil increase and advertise for public hearing at December 2nd. You'll get presented to you your draft budget with the 1 mil increase, so you can then review, legally authorize for your budget public hearing the 2nd Tuesday of December, which is your last public regular meeting. These are just options.
Well, we have a motion on the floor for that option, right? What you just said. Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I second Ms. Stevens' motion.
It's been properly moved and seconded. Ms. Strickland?
Sorry, was the motion to authorize for advertisement the public hearing?
Actually, it wasn't. It was to move forward with the 1 mil increase.
Right.
Which was, all right, Ms. Stevens and Mr. Thompson, do you want to? I'll need some help, Madam Manager. We had this agenda item was for a special fire tax ordinance, which was for 1 mil. Were we going to do a public hearing on the 1 mil anyway, or was this
This was
happening
the public
today?
hearing for the special fire protection tax, and that failed. So I would, if the
Okay,
board is
so we've gotta come
comfortable,
back.
I
Okay.
would like to bring back, legally advertise just a 1 mil increase. Bring it back for you to then hold the public hearing for the 1 mil increase and take formal action on that ordinance. We'll also bring your budget with that 1 mil increase integrated into your general fund. It's a clean approach forward. So tonight, I would recommend just authorizing legal advertisement to hold the public hearing for for an ordinance to enact a 1 mil increase.
Okay. Ms. Stevens, Ms. Thompson, are you okay with that adjustment that we're authorizing a public hearing on the 1 mil increase for December, for the first meeting in December?
Yes.
Yes, as long as, as long as Pat, well, it's going to be up to Patty to
Yes, I'm okay with that.
fully, so you're amending, I'm amending, yes.
Okay. Any addition, Ms. Strickland, are we good?
So the motion now is to authorize for advertisement the public hearing on the 1 mil increase.
Correct.
Okay, yep, thank you.
Very good. And this is just a regular motion. All those in favor do so by saying aye.
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 Opposed, nay? Motion carries. All right. Item 3 here, continued discussion on roles and procedures as it relates to agenda preparation and the board manager form of government. I'll turn it to the manager.
Thank you, Chair. Provided with the agenda is a detailed narrative. It summarizes some of the dialogue from the previous meeting, and then also our recent discussion in the November 12th talking about board consensus priorities, and then also just talking about what a streamlined approach would look like to be able to get information from individual board members, who desire to have conversations. I think, ultimately, when you look at our charter, you look at our code, you look at our resolutions, we generally find that the way that our form of government is that all of you collectively form as the board, but all of you individually have areas of interest that you would like to talk about, getting agenda items to the agenda and for discussion. We talked about doing a work session, 2 workshops or work sessions in early of Q1, so all of your individual known legislative items of interest could be, through a discovery discussion, be identified and then prioritized so we can integrate that through, but also acknowledging that you still will have likely areas that you would like to bring up. And so being able to properly do that research as it's already in the board's procedures section for board member requests, just looking at to see what your agenda item is, particularly how it aligns with the township's strategic plan and any legislative items that align with the township, and bringing that forward in a streamlined approach through the reaching out to the executive assistant. And so I think really what's being presented here is a proposed option and having dialogue about what that looks like. So moving forward, every board member is having those conscious conversations about how we're managing all of the policies appropriately.
All right, we'll do one round with the board. Ms. Stevens? Anything?
No, but I definitely like the prioritization work plan. I think that will be helpful, and that's it.
Mr. Howard?
May I go last?
Sure. Ms. Strickland?
Nothing yet. Thank you.
Mr. Thompson?
I was thinking of deferring my comments as well, but I have put a lot of thought into at least the agenda item request piece of that. So
Yeah, and we can do a second round. I said we'd do a kind of board round, we'll do a community round, and then make a motion and go from there. So nothing from me, Mr. Heller.
Again, I understand the narrative, but I get to the recommendation and I'm missing connections. I mean, some of the words that are used here don't even fit, and I just don't know how this is actionable without modifications. I'm just concerned. So I see the recommendation, but it's going to take some time to revisit the narrative to maybe craft one that seems actionable.
Okay.
So I'm going to need some time.
Sounds good. Community input. Happy to have you. Anyone come up and say any words? Sir? First hand up. That was really fast.
Bill Keogh, Ferguson Township resident. Somehow it seems to me that I need to have some input with the agenda making staff. It seems that the items that I want to talk about are always at the end, and I'm old. I go to bed earlier than most. I will struggle through this. I have spent the weekend trying to understand what is behind the manager request and how much staff chaos the current procedure is causing. Ferguson Township governance is not complicated. We are not a multinational corporation or a sovereign country. We are 30,000 acres of land mass with a mix of suburban, commercial, agriculture, a population of 19,000, give or take, and about 1,800 residences. This is not rocket science, the governance of this township. As I read the manager-generated material you were presented with, I see a lot of what I characterize as word salad. References to fairness, transparency, and charter compliance lead the parade of salad ingredients. 5 questions related to that issue. Number 1, when we're talking about fairness, who are we creating more fairness for in making the change that is being recommended? In relation to fairness, who are we being unfair to with the current policy? With regard to transparency, what level of transparency are we trying to achieve with this change? What is not transparent about the current policy? Number 5, how is the current policy not in compliance with the Home Rule Charter? This discussion topic has consistently referred to board member requests for agenda items and the procedure related to that. Since elected board members are not township staff, their alternative status would be they are elected township citizens with rights and responsibilities as outlined in the charter as a board member, in addition to being Ferguson Township residents. A board member may wear multiple hats while serving in an elected capacity. When elected, they do not give up their rights as citizens of Ferguson Township as they sit on the board. Under section 2.20 of the charter, citizens' right to be heard, a board member has the right to submit an agenda item at any time prescribed by the charter as a citizen. I'm aware that the current Ferguson Township Administrative Code does describe some of the details for such a submission. The Administrative Code never trumps the Home Rule Charter. The code is to provide more detailed procedures, but never trumps the charter. I believe the discussion around this issue is the confusion the staff has created in their relationship between the administrative code of the township, the municipal code of the state, and the charter. This needs to be clarified and discussed publicly before any changes are made. The suggestion by the manager that board-generated agenda items be limited to an annual work plan format is not in compliance with the charter, in my opinion. The motion that you have in front of you doesn't give you the option of retaining the current resolution as adopted. It gives you the option of making changes or revisions, but I would suggest that at the moment you adopt adopt a ordinance that says the current resolution is adopted and not changed. There appears to be some confusion and lack of transparency regarding the two different reference codes. the Ferguson Township Administrative Code, and the Pennsylvania Municipal Code, and then there's the Home Rule Charter. The codes do not trump the Home Rule Charter. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yeah.
Kayla Coral, Ferguson Township resident. I'm first off a little along the lines with Matt, confused with the narrative to the recommendation and what is considered a continuation of the conversation that we had last meeting to align with the charter. I've done some self-reflection and some additional research and some conversations with other residents and other respected people in this township to try to understand the point in which this is being brought up at such a time. I'm disappointed that it's being brought up because, again, through my research, without trying to target anyone or anybody in particular, I'm not putting names to these. These are roles in the township. It doesn't matter who's sitting in them. I expect the same from that role. The township manager is called out as the chief administrative officer of this township. Administrative officer is the executor responsible for managing the day-to-day internal operations of an organization and the administrative processes. Administratively, that just means making sure that things get done, that you're told to do. Not being the one in charge of telling other people what to do when they are your governing body. It doesn't go that way. The manager, according to the Home Rule Charter, shall perform additional duties that are specified by the board or by that charter. So therefore, when the board asks for something, the manager needs to deliver that. That person, board, can ask for a length of time. It doesn't have to be tomorrow, but if you're asking them to do it, they should do it. The Board of Supervisors, to echo Bill Keogh, we have a citizen's right to be heard. In that statement, it also says that the public shall have the right to submit agenda items to the board for next scheduled meeting. If I can't submit it to the board and have my board member request that outside of a work session, I feel like we're violating our charter. Restricting you to 1 or 2 months in the beginning of the year is not helpful for anyone. I apologize if anybody's been slighted in the least for your requests, but there needs to be an ultimatum. We need to look at the charter. As we stated earlier, we're not going to take a comment from a board member from 15 years ago to talk about our taxation. We've run into an issue where our charter has not been looked at since 1976 when it was created. So you can change those things. You can redo them. This is wrong. And I hope that you take that into account, because as a citizen, it feels wrong. Or at least line up your narrative and what you're saying month after month, meeting after meeting, with your recommendations. That's all I have to say.
Anyone else? Thank you. Anything online? Excellent. So, all right, thanks for community input. I will go back to board discussion here, and in fact, as chair, I'll entertain a motion, whatever motion one wants to make.
I'm happy to make a motion. All right, I move that the Board of Supervisors directs the solicitor to develop a home rule charter compliant procedure for getting board requested items to the agenda. This home rule charter compliant procedure shall include consultation between the manager and the chair, with the chair making the ultimate decision to have an item appear on the agenda.
Is there a second?
This is Patty, I'll second.
Discussion.
So my initial discussion, or my initial thoughts is that I sort of feel like we're going into legalese, right? That here we are again, trying to control our costs. We have a great working relationship with the manager and the staff. You can give me everybody wants to quote a section from the home rule charter or the township code or something. I would just much rather work with our professional staff. So I get it, I understand your thing, but I would like to disagree with what Ms. Coral said about the citizens' right to be heard. They can contact the staff directly. We're just trying to get a procedure in place where you don't always have to come, because as a board member, I'm not always available. I've been gone the last 5 days. People, if they wanted to be heard, they wouldn't have done it. So this is about setting up a procedure where you can talk to the staff, the professional staff. I think we have a great relationship. Who is being fair and unfair? I think it's unfair of us to barrage township staff who are also trying to handle the operations. Bill, you seem to imply that it's not that it's easy to run a township. I think I disagree with that 100%. You've got public work issues, you've got public issues, you've got police issues. I'm just really frustrated by this. I think we're trying to make it into something it's not. Anyway, but.
Yeah, and if I may, I really have separated these two entities out. One is the procedure for how a board member gets something onto the agenda and what that approval looks like, which is what the motion was that I was bringing forward here, not the work plan development. That is kind of that guiding document on the side that has been developed. That's something that would come in, would be compared to say, hold on, with the chair making the ultimate decision as to whether or not it passes muster and makes it onto the agenda, based on, again, the guiding principles of what we just talked about the last time, which was that other document that we'll put together at the beginning of the year. So I look at these two things as working collectively and having very distinct roles in the process.
That's good.
Somebody can tell me that's wrong. That was just always been my impression since these items have come up.
Ms. Strickland? Oh, Ms. Thompson, sorry.
Yeah, I was kind of debating about going back and forth with this, but Ms. Stevens had touched on it. The board clearly has entertained and welcomed the comments on this item before us, but personal remarks directed at the staff, such as they created confusion, were not in order. I understand there may be some people that have frustrations, there might be some people that have confusion, but I think everyone should keep the focus on the ordinance language or what's being proposed, so that we can address substance constructively. Again, I have put a lot of thought into this, and I actually did take some time and drafted a framework for a board member agenda item request proposals. I feel it's designed to support fairness, transparency, and operational clarity while fully aligning with the home rule charter and the municipal code. My process that I drafted reinforces the township manager's exclusive authority over agenda preparation and integrates a tiered classification system that respects staff capacity and strategic pacing. It also complements the manager's proposed annual board work plan by deferring major initiatives for collective evaluation, like has been proposed on an annual basis. I will also add, there has been some comments about the citizens' right to be heard. I am open retaining the options that our residents have should they want to bring something forward to the board. So there are options out there, and I would encourage anyone that wants to exercise them to exercise them. So those are my remarks.
Ms. Strickland.
Thanks. Just a couple of things, and this is largely what I said when we discussed this last time, was, when this was created, this was an attempt to do what I think we're trying to do now. And I don't know if submissions have largely changed over this year. I know we had a lot during my time as chair, and at one point we did have to say, well, we'll have to take just one per month and maybe two sometimes if it was going to be a light agenda. So there was some timing of that. But, just again, as I said last time, if a board member submitted a discussion request, that was sent to the manager and the chair. It had to include how it was related to this strategic plan, and it was presented for discussion only. So the requester created their discussion item without staff involvement. They created the narrative. It was emailed in. I did plenty of these, had them sent back to me, had them corrected, and I would, that's what was put into the agenda, was what you wrote. Then it was placed on the consent agenda. It was at that time that the board could decide to not discuss it at all. When it was on the consent agenda, you pull it off, you say, no, I don't want you to discuss what it is. The board member requesting could maybe present a little bit about what that item was going to be, and it could end right there. That could be it. If it was approved and moved forward, then it was still for discussion only. The result of that discussion then could be a request for action or further discussion, but no one board member could ask staff to help them prepare the item. That was a secondary step. So there was never, I'm going to present a board member request and I'm going to need all these documents to help me present this. That wasn't what it was about. It was presenting a concept to the board for discussion to see if the board wanted to discuss it further or potentially take action. It was then during that discussion item that, if the board was largely in favor of moving forward, discussing further, doing some action on that item, the manager could say, okay, you'll have a work plan next year. Here is our work plan. Here are the other things we have coming, into our work, over the next few months. Here's what's going to be delayed if you decide now to prioritize this. Or, I hear you all want to do this. We're not going to get it till the second half of next year unless you want to delay these three other things. It was a discussion at that point, fully informed about what was coming. And again, you'll have this work plan, which is going to help you, to prioritize this, but, the manager will know we have all these development plans you're going to have to look at. We've got, the comprehensive plan we're going to have to look at, a zoning thing. So you could put it into context then and prioritize at that time. So, just to sum up a couple of things, I think that process works really well. I think it needs more language around it in the procedures manual to really explain what is expected and what's allowed as far as what needs to be presented. But I think the process works, so with some clarification. Thanks.
Mr. Thompson.
Yeah, and that's one thing that I feel should be a part of a revised board member request is outlining the parameters of research responsibility. I believe the board members should be responsible for conducting preliminary research and providing relevant documentation, and that staff should not be expected to do any research unless, you know, a agenda item was classified in a particular tier, or, you know, was something that came out of our work plan, and that any proposals that lack sufficient background could be deferred or returned for revision. So.
Anything else from Stevens?
I have nothing else.
No, just the motion.
I didn't plan on saying anything, but I actually have one question. Who plans on bringing a board member agenda item up this in the next 6 weeks? You do?
I've had one since before April.
Copy.
And Chair, if I may, that's in part what we're trying to manage right now, are the number of items, and the prioritization does fall on the manager by way of the current resolution. And as we prepare for the board procedure for 2026, we're evaluating this process, and I'm happy to continue to discuss this in exec session for personnel matter related items, but I have brought to the board in the light for conversations to really understand the impacts and figuring out, and you can call it a word salad, but I call it flexible options for your consideration. I don't have one way. I certainly can present some suggestions, and it's written in the narrative, but it's understanding that, to the point of some of what we heard, there is some charter language, and no one is suggesting that you don't, as citizens, submit your request for a board agenda topic 7 days prior to the agenda, just as it's outlined within the charter, and it gets onto the board's agenda. It's the most efficient way, and it's very clearly defined in the charter. No one is suggesting that that's not a continued avenue for citizens. It's understanding that as individual board members, while you are still a citizen, you are the governing body. And the charter and the code, and while the charter does trump the code, there are some considerations, legal considerations, that you are briefed and trained on at various times to ensure that there's not perceived influence, for example, of decisions that are made at planning commission or zoning hearing board. You do have obligation and duties and responsibilities that oftentimes can separate you from being part of a process until it gets to you. And land development plan, for example, is one of them. Understanding you all have very individual interest, this is understanding that some of your interest is still sitting with us, and understanding that we have not had the capacity to bring it forward. Some of the way that the individual board member request items are coming through are inconsistent with how we've seen them in the past, and they're not following the board procedure. And it puts me as the manager and other staff in a predicament to say, this is not done correctly. And it's not a conversation that should be had at that level to remind individual board members, please follow your policy. And so this is brought into the light to say, yes, let's continue a practice, but let's have continuity, consistency. Let's ensure that the practice is followed consistently among all of you. And then let's identify ways that we're able to get your discussions that are related to your legislative duty collectively for discussion. Alternatively, what ends up happening is this, when are we going to have time to discuss individual board member items? And I mean, if the board has discussion and says, as the board, we move to bring this discussion back, that is within your purview as a board. But as individual members of the board requesting items, it becomes more of a, okay, you are looking for this item and you're requesting it through your direct access to the manager. And then it creates this prioritization that falls on the manager. And some of you have had your items expedited, some of you haven't. And it's largely a result of looking at staff. So if you bring an item that might be more closely tied to planning and zoning, for example, we know their capacity may not align with the capacity that finance and tax currently has. So there's various reasons and levels that as part of the evaluation process, what gets advanced forward from you as individual board members, that's a different process. And it looks different. And I'm looking to you as the governing body to tighten up your legislative policy as the board procedure does get updated for formal action at the first organizational meeting. So this is an opportunity to bring into the light for discussion some of the challenges that we're facing, looking to you to be to partner and be part of the solution in the public meeting. Hopefully that helps put in perspective some of the challenges and opportunities for moving forward.
Mr. Thompson, Ms. Strickland, are there any, do you have any board agenda items coming up to add?
No.
Well, never mind, Chair Thompson, you put whatever you want on the agenda. Okay, I don't.
I think I have to.
So I can appreciate all that was just said there. I can appreciate kind of the community. This has been the way things are since 2017, and I've hated it the entire time. So I'm not opposed to getting rid of this. I'm not opposed to doing something different. I'm not opposed to just let's go with the charter citizen. I'm not, because I don't like the way we've done it, and I've been very vocal about it. I'm not sure that I'm in favor of having our solicitor go draft something when really this is about items on the agenda, and the charter is clear that citizens can get something on there. And if we do want, as a board, to agree to a process that maybe Mr. Thompson's already laid out and drafted up, let's talk about that in January when we do our original organizational meeting. Let's align on that with our team, and then do it. So I'm a no on the motion, but I'm a yes for let's reorganize in January with all this good feedback. That's all I have. And I'm happy to call the question if there's anybody else that wants to speak.
I can follow up with the manager and guess even yourself, Mr. Patterson. I think this could be a chair-vice chair collaboration.
Thank you, sir. All right, all those in favor do so by saying aye.
It's my motion. I kind of have to.
All those opposed do so by saying the same. Aye.
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 That motion fails. But it sounds like we have some consensus to hit this in January, to reorganize with all that we've talked through, and have that kind of final document in the reorganizational meeting. And I'll just say, is there any other motion that anyone wants to bring to the? No. Okay, great, very good. All right, we'll move on to the next agenda item, the consent agenda, new business, consent agenda. Is there anything anybody wants to pull?
I would like to pull A.
All right, we'll pull an A. Anything else? Going once, going twice. Okay, just pulling agenda item A.
Motion to approve the consent agenda minus item A.
Second.
It's been properly moved and seconded. All those in favor do, discussion. There's no discussion. All those in favor do so by saying aye.
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 Aye. Opposed, the same? Motion carries. We'll move to item A, approval for Public Works to conduct speed calming traffic study. Since we've pulled it, we'll do the same thing. Round of board discussion, community input, back to board for motion. I'll start with Ms. Strickland. Anything?
Shouldn't we, I was gonna say, should we start with him?
Oh, sorry, Matt, you pulled it. Sorry.
I got a reason for pulling this.
I want to Ms. Strickland.
Yeah.
But now you get it.
No, so this was an important one for me because I know one of the things that concerned me is kind of the process here. So I have no issue with the the Public Works conducting the calming traffic study. I'd like to bring this back for discussion in the future, though, so I just want to bring this up here to put a pin in something for the future, to really discuss and review that ordinance related to having to do a traffic review study. Because what I saw from the citizens' request and what I saw from all the signatures was folks just want us, could we start smaller without having to go through the big process, the big ordinance, where you can say, hey, look, if we put up 2 stop signs and change the speed limit signs from 45 to 25, let's see how that works for a while. We don't need public hearing, come back, input, township to get involved, somebody else to do a study, when we could just switch out signs if we all agree and it comes to the board in that fashion, so a public hearing comes to the board, and then we approve and say, yeah, go ahead and change the signs, and let's see if that resolves the issue. And if it does, then we don't have to do deeper steps that would involve construction. So again, I'd like to revisit the ordinance to maybe create an earlier off-ramp to get to that yes or no sooner. And if it is just changing out some signs or planting a couple new stop signs, well, I think that should just go from public hearing and right in front of the board instead of having to do a full traffic study. Because again, in this case in particular, you're looking to calm things, you're not looking to open them up wider. So the risk is you're actually looking to mitigate it. I'll share all of that again if we were able to bring this back for a future discussion. But I have no issue with this item because the ordinance does state that this has to be done this way right now. It's just time consuming.
Any questions for anybody, staff, on this, or no? You just wanted to?
No, just needed to say, hopefully, I mean, I welcome any questions, concerns, but that was what stuck out to me. If we could just build a little bit of a faster turnaround and really not waste staff time or anybody's time having to do studies on this or on something that might not require construction.
All right, folks online on the board, Ms. Strickland, Mr. Thompson, anything?
I would say Matt brought up some great points. I think that should be, and I would defer to staff, though. In my recollection, not everything is easy as you could just put up a stop sign wherever the heck you wanted, or just change out a sign if you want to. But just there are a lot of. It sounds like there are many factors to that, and maybe a good item for education for the board at a later time.
If I may enter some dialogue, I completely agree with that, and I think everything I saw in the ordinance only cited township ordinances. So I went, well, this is a township self-imposed thing. Could we do it differently? And again, future discussion, but that was kind of my takeaway from it.
Yeah. And I've seen this work out, during my tenure in the township, and it is a great resident engagement piece that gives the resident, a voice and even some form of action to possibly mitigate or address their concerns. So.
All right, anything else from the board? Any community input? Actually, this gentleman's arm was up way faster. It hit me in the corner of my eye.
My name is Dan Kowalski. I live at 4820 West Whitehall Road in Meadows neighborhood, located in western Ferguson Township. I want to thank the Board of Supervisors to allow us to present a petition for a formal traffic speed study in consideration of traffic reduction measures through and between the Meadows and the Fairbrook neighborhoods. As stated within our petition, we are most concerned about the excessive speeding through both neighborhoods. I personally have set up a way to check the speed of vehicles passing by my home. I've conducted speed checks 4 different times within the last year or so, usually about 30 minutes. The average speed of drivers passing by my house has been about 45 to 50 miles an hour, with a maximum speed that I clocked at 70 miles an The current speed limit through the Meadows is 35 miles an hour. And through Fairbrook, it was changed a while back to 25 miles an hour. My mailbox has been destroyed twice. I've already had a close encounter with a car almost running down through my neighborhood. In all instances, there were bikers moving through the neighborhood, and people were just moving way too fast for conditions. And so I really believe that there's somewhat of a big issue through these two neighborhoods here. We get a lot of bicycles coming through, a lot of groups of bikes coming through, and I'm not against that. I'm a biker myself. But the thing is, we have to figure out a way to make this speed thing, people are trying to get from point A to point B way too fast. So the idea here is basically to look at how dangerous this is. The Foundation for Traffic Safety and recently a firm called Money Geek showed that the average risk of severe injury for pedestrians struck by a vehicle reaches 25% at 23 miles an hour, 50% at 31 miles an hour, 75% at 39 miles an hour, 90% at 46. The average risk of death for a pedestrian reaches 50% at 42 miles an hour and 90% at 58 miles an hour. Again, I will remind you, when I clocked the traffic, the average speed that people were driving was 45 to 50 miles an hour with a max of 70. That's a very dangerous situation through our neighborhood. That does not include large vehicles. Keep in mind, when I moved there over 40 years ago in the Meadows, we did not have these huge trucks that we have now, the pickup trucks. And so we've noticed that pickup trucks in some respect are the biggest culprits of the guys or people who are moving through our neighborhoods very, very quickly. We're hoping that a traffic study will show that the speed limit should be lowered to 25 through the Meadows. And because there's so many people either biking or jogging or even scooters now going between the neighborhoods, maybe we ought to make it 25 miles an hour between both neighborhoods. In other words, through the Meadows, through that 7/10 of a mile, and all the way through the Fairbrook neighborhood. And that would probably calm the traffic down quite a bit then. We also believe, again, those measures that, Matt, you talked about probably need to be looked at. Maybe just painting the actual speed limit on the actual pavement like we see in a lot of neighborhoods. I've been to a lot of different neighborhoods in different parts of the country, and they do that a lot. So maybe it's an education thing to remind people. I don't know if rumble strips are a logical solution to a road like Whitehall Road, but that's also something to consider. And again, as you pointed out, a lot of people said maybe we ought to just make the intersection between Tadpole Road and between Tadpole Road and Whitehall Road a four-way stop. I don't know. I'm no expert. That's, again, why we need to look at a study, and people should look at this very closely. We in the Meadows and Fairbrook neighborhoods are committed to working with the Board of Supervisors to ensure that travel through the neighborhoods is safe for everyone. We believe that a study and a look at this is necessary first step to a permanent effective solution to this situation. Again, we would like to see a prompt response and a clear timeline as to when you'll be acting on this. I do want to point out that Patty and Tim Reddington in the Fairbrook neighborhood have been big people on this, drawing up the petition and gathering signatures. Lisa Campbell, who lives between the neighborhoods, we all know who Lisa is. She also got a lot of signatures as well. I also, because of what you guys have been talking about too, I want to thank Jenna at Antel. She worked with me. I came to here and said, this is what I need to get done. She guided me through the whole process. Boy, talk about a simple, easy way to do it. Just like you said, just meet up with somebody here, tell them what your problem is, and then they will guide you through the whole process. So, again, I think, keep it simple. Thank you.
Thank you. Sir. Oh, wait. Was there another hand that was faster? Nope, he already ran. Get you.
Just a quick point. Matt's thought about how quickly can we make this happen. And I think Chief King will support me on this. You're going to need a speed limit study in order to back up the ordinance in order to make it enforceable. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So you're going to need a speed limit study. I think anything that when you get in 25 miles an hour, there are criteria that are going to have to be met in order to make that happen. I do think it is a speeding problem, though, and been around here for many, many years, and it is, it's hard to go from 45 to 25 to 35 to back down to 35 in that stretch, and I think having some speed limit study along with some speed mitigation suggestions that were just made would be very helpful in before you get into traffic calming, speed humps, chicanes, things like that are actual structural things. But the baseline is you need a speed limit study done by a qualified traffic engineer.
Anyone else? Oh, sir, I think you.
My name's Andy McKinnon. I live in the Meadows, neighbor of Dan's. I'm all fully in accord with the need to change the speed limit in the Meadows down to 25. It's for all the reasons cited by Dan and others. It's the safe way to go. It's going to be a case where something's going to happen and we're going to regret we didn't act sooner. They recently changed the speed limit in Fairbrook a couple of years ago down to 25 that Dan mentioned. People weren't used to that, but it didn't take long to adjust your driving habits to be able to brake and come from 45 miles per hour down to 25 instead of 35 when you're entering Fairbrook. Easy to do. That was kind of a test situation for myself as far as this new question. If you can do it in Fairbrook, you can do it in the Meadows. So I'm all about that, and I'm assuming that a study that this petition results in will confirm that that's a good safety measure. I'm not quite so sure about the whole 0.7 mile stretch, converting that to 25 miles per hour. It seems that might be a little unnecessary to reduce your speed that much for 0.7 miles. I don't personally think it is difficult to go from 45 to 25, especially when it's well marked. A good example of that is coming into Pine Grove Mills from the west. There are plenty of signs that not only show you what the speed limit is, and there are a lot of changes in there. It goes from, I think, 50 or maybe even 55 down to 45 or something, then maybe 40, eventually to 25. And it's easy to do because not only do they have the posted speed limits, they also have indications of when it's going to be changing to the next speed limit. They could do the same thing along that 0.7 stretch. Nor am I personally all that in favor of a stop sign on the east end of Fairbrook where it meets Tadpole Road, Whitehall and Tadpole. That seems, I don't want to say excessive because people have died there. There have been at least one fatal wreck at that intersection. But the speed limit is now 25 at Fairbrook. I know we don't always have mature drivers behind the wheel, but mature drivers should easily be able to coast through Fairbrook going east or west for that matter, going the proper speed limit. They shouldn't need a stop sign there. However, I will say if a speed study recommends putting in a stop sign and or changing the speed, reducing the speed limit to 25 miles per hour along that 0.7 open stretch of Whitehall, then I would absolutely be, I would be in accord with that. The one last thing I wanted to talk about was the bike lanes or the lack of them on Whitehall Road, not only along that 0.7 stretch, but the whole stretch of Whitehall. I don't know if the township or the county erred in not putting in legitimate official bike lanes back when they worked on the road 20 years ago or whatever. But we don't have bike lanes there now. We have, I measured it the other day, at least where it comes through, where Whitehall comes through the meadows, the width of that shoulder is about 30 inches. According to what I read online, for the speed limits marked along Whitehall, which are in excess of 40 miles per hour, it's 45 right now, a bike lane should be 6 feet wide. So it's quite a difference from what we have there now. I know it's not a bike lane. A lot of other residents and drivers know that it's not a bike lane, but a lot of people don't. They notice that those shoulders have been widened 20 years ago and maybe assume those are actual bike lanes now when they're not. That creates a very dangerous situation. From my experience as a rider and as a driver, it happens all the time. It's as though most drivers do not understand what the rules of driving are. They're assuming they don't know what's going on or don't care, or they're assuming there's an actual bike lane there. When you're approaching a bicycle in your car, what normally happens, this is not good driving, what normally happens is the driver does not slow down and wait for an avenue to go around that bicyclist. They go ahead and go around and get in the opposing lane, forcing the opposing driver, if there is one, to go off the road. That's a dangerous situation, and that shouldn't be happening. What you should do, given there's not a bike lane there, is you should stop or slow down until you have a chance to get around when nobody else is coming. So there's a problem here. What I hope happens is that we open up, I don't know if there's any discussion right now, but we need to start thinking, if there's not, about putting in real bike lanes along Whitehall Road. We've got quite the bike traffic along there, and we also have increased numbers of cars, many more cars on the road, I'm sure, than we did back 20 years ago. So more bikes, more cars. It's a recipe for catastrophe. So
thank you.
To me, that's something that needs to be opened up imminently before something really bad happens. Either a driver is killed or a pedestrian or a bike rider or whatever along Whitehall Road. So thank you.
Appreciate it. All right. There is more comments. Okay, please. Oh boy.
Hi, my name is Ron Williams. I live in Fairbrook. So I'll speak to that end of this discussion. I just want to reinforce how critical the issue really is. We moved out there in 1979. I live right on Whitehall Road, right in the middle of the development there. And of course, with the widening of Whitehall, et cetera, traffic has definitely increased. But speeds have become a real concern. Those of us who live there, relatively small properties, you got a driveway you pull into, and you've got to back out unless you want to use your yard. So we've all learned to back out on the highway when we go out, and we all learn to be very careful about that. But the issue of doing that has required more skill as time has gone on, because where I live, you back out on the highway, going into town, your rear is facing up towards the meadows. You see a car clear up on the hill, you can't always count on that car being like halfway to you by the time you're ready, you pull out and go forward. Many times you'll look in the back window after you backed out and started to pull forward, and it's right on your tail. And that's something we live with daily. It's a concern. Another concern is that we appreciate the police coming out and sitting out there and trying to convey the message that you don't speed through here. I know their numbers, their availability to do that is limited. So they're there during the afternoons, usually, sometimes mornings. But you want to see some real speeding? Come between 4 o'clock and 10 o'clock. Right?
Yes.
My wife and I have been startled numerous times in our house, just going about our normal business, and all of a sudden, literally, I know that measurement of 70 miles an hour is real. And it's even real down there in Fairbrook where the speed limit is 25. It's trucks, often. It's motorcycles. And I'm not biased because I ride a motorcycle. But there are people who do not care what the sign says. So when we look at mitigating this, we need to look at what does it really take to get people to slow down when they come through here, because I am surprised there's only been one accident down at that intersection that I know of. But I'm also surprised people haven't been hit or killed along the road before that intersection. And with some of the speeds that people are hitting when they come through there, either whichever way you want to look at it, but coming down from the meadows, somebody going that fast, if there were a stop sign at that intersection, and maybe there's a car ahead of them, there's a little bit of a rise, and then you go down as you're going through Fairbrook. Somebody going that fast wouldn't be able to see somebody that had to stop at that stop sign until they're right there and probably unable to stop. So it's a larger issue. I don't know how you really remedy it, but I think that from my perspective, we're just asking that somebody take a serious look at it and try to figure out how do you address something like this realistically, because it is very dangerous. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank everybody that's coming up. Anybody else? Anybody online? Excellent. So I'll entertain a motion to approve item A from the consent agenda.
This is Patty, so moved.
This is Matt, second.
It's been properly moved in second. Any additional discussion?
I just want to say again, thank you to the residents for coming out here. This is an important topic. We had dealt with this exact same thing in Pine Grove Mills, and through Mr. Kunkel's leadership, we were able to go ahead and resolve that, and I'm hoping we can offer the same thing as we go forward here through this traffic study. So thank you.
Absolutely.
Yeah, Mr. Heller, thank you for pulling that in. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for giving those residents the opportunity to address those concerns in this forum. Also, a shout out to our executive assistant. Always hearing great words from her, and it really is humbling, and I hear many great stories of staff that take the time to walk through with residents on various matters. And I know all of our staff are very accommodating in that and take that time, and I appreciate that. So.
Ditto. All those in favor do so by saying aye.
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 Opposed? The same? Motion carried. All right, we'll move on to item 2, is public hearing of the Township of Ferguson, Center County, Pennsylvania, on a resolution to submit local share account grant application for construction of a sidewalk on West College Ave. I'll turn it over to Assistant Township Manager James Progar for the narrative.
Yeah, thank you, Vice Chair. The board is being asked to consider the application for the Pennsylvania LSA grant. This is funded through the PA Horse Development and Gaming Act, casino money, if you will. This is a 100% grant program. There is no match required by the township. The township currently has a grant for Science Park Road, and the crossing there submitted in the same program as well. The request is for the amount of $832,000. This is to construct the sidewalk along West College Avenue from Blue Course Drive to approximately just about 1445 West College Avenue. This would be the sidewalk that came from the easement agreement with Penn State regarding the conditional use of the MMA building. The 2025, the township contracted HRG to design the sidewalk and easement documents. The proposed sidewalk features a 4-foot wide paver band and 8-foot wide cement sidewalk and is approximately 1,700 feet in length. The engineer's estimated cost to construct is $757,000. The total grant request, that includes the allowable 10% for engineering and design services. So that's where we get to $832,000. So, yeah.
I will entertain a motion.
Move that the Board of Supervisors adopt the resolution.
Mrs. Patty, I'll second.
It's been properly moved and seconded. Any discussion? Mr. Thompson? Mr. Strickland?
Nothing to add.
All right, it's been properly moved and seconded. All those in discussions in order, all those in favor do so by saying aye.
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 Opposed, the same. Motion carried. Communications to the board.
I had a letter from HOA at T-Berry, interested in a traffic calming study. I thought it went to all the board, but did you get it? No? Interesting. Okay,
Someone like you, Patty.
I guess so.
And Jeremy, probably.
Yeah.
I too did receive the request from T-Berry, and I appreciate that has been forwarded over to staff. We do intend to follow up on that, as well as some correspondence we received from the Overlook Heights neighborhood regarding semi-trailer traffic traversing through the neighborhood. That matter has been referred to staff, who is actively looking into that as well. So,
I had communications relating to the fire protection tax as well as the process for getting items on the agenda by supervisors. Oh, and the budget. Yes.
Ms. Strickland?
Nothing to share, thank you.
All right, I had communications on everything on this agenda. Moving on to calendar items, several things going on, some township closed days and some community opportunities, coffee and conversation, and there's a HOA forum for HOA board members. And Cocoa with cops.
Yeah. Happy Thanksgiving.
Item 10.
Is motion to adjourn?
I was going to call someone else.
No.
Second, we're adjourned.